Welcome to the Armchair Expert. I'm Dax Shepard. Today, I am joined by my TV wife, Joy Bryant. You know her from Parenthood, Get Rich or Die Trying, Antwone Fisher. She's a writer. She's an actress. She's a clothing designer and one of my all-time favorite people to talk to. I think we worked together for almost 7 years on Parenthood, and we never, ever tired of shooting the shit. And as you'll hear, our favorite topics are sex and race in no particular order. I credit her with defeating me in numerous debates, and I thank her for her patience while guiding me at a snail's pace towards wokeness. She would hate that I just used that word wokeness. But anyways, please enjoy my good friend, Joy Bryant.
He's an armchair expert.
I don't want to do anything. I don't want to do anything.
He's an armchair expert.
We can edit.
We can have a conversation. If I don't feel comfortable, I'll be like, I don't want to talk about this shit. Or we can talk 100%. And then kind of go back and like.
This ain't NPR. I'm not trying to.
Oh, this is not NPR?
No,
I must be in the wrong place.
Yeah. My appointment sheet says NPR.
My call sheet says NPR.
Okay, I'm going to start.
Okay.
Joy Bryant, welcome to the Armchair Expert podcast. I got to say, out of everyone that's on, and you can look at it, my dry erase board, I have a bazillion names on there.
And I'm cleaning my glasses.
Sincerely, you are the person I'm most excited to talk to. Yeah.
Say what?
I think I enjoy talking to you almost more than anybody else.
Oh, I see people on there.
Yeah, maybe you should look.
Oh my God.
Don't
there's
look.
Some real deal motherfuckers.
What if it just seemed like
honored.
Superman, Batman, not even their names.
Aquaman, Wonder Woman.
But we were on Parenthood together for 6 years, and we virtually did this every single day in our trailer, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a lot of therapy that went down.
Oh my God. Well, because your listeners don't know this, but Dax, I mean, you'd make a great therapist and a great acting teacher.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I know people know you direct. They don't know how good you do, you know what I'm saying?
I'm always looking for the backup plan. Because as we all know, eventually that phone will not ring for about 4 years. And you got to move into something else. And I've been kind of working on transpo, if you know. Like, remember one time I drove my trailer to work and they found a little.
That. Was that on the movie?
No, on Parenthood.
What?
On Parenthood, I was like leaving for the sand dunes after we shot one day. So I drove the 20-foot trailer onto the lot. And then they found this little spot for me and I backed it in and they were all really impressed. And that to me felt bigger than any Academy Award or anything else. I just wanted all those blue collar dudes to be like, yep, he's one of us.
I remember when I was when I was shooting a movie and at the time I had this like fancy like Mercedes G-Wagon. Oh, yeah. And I drove that to set. They're like, whatever. But then the day when I drove my husband's like Dave's big ass.
We have the same truck.
Was Silverado or whatever? 2500
HD Silverado, 4-door with the Duramax diesel.
Bam.
Beautiful
like,
truck.
All transfer like, yo. And I'm like, yeah. And they started park. I would like pull up and they would park my truck.
Like you had a Ferrari.
Yeah. And then Kevin Hart was like, because he had a G-Wagon too. He was like, yo, how come they don't? And I was like, they don't give a fuck about your G-Wagon now. They care about this.
This diesel motherfucker. This 700 pounds of foot torque.
Yo, I got so much props and like, yeah. So
yeah. Well, we'll get into your husband, who's an enigma in so many ways. And I'm attracted to every one of those ways. But I think you have, in addition to I just love talking to you, I think you have one of the more interesting stories that there are because you grew up in the Bronx and you were raised by your grandma. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a really interesting, long, curvy road to you and I being on Parenthood. In a weird way, I feel like I relate in that I lived in a welfare building for a few years. I was brought home to a trailer. I love that either you or I could end up, doing what we do.
Well, hence when you said about like always having a backup plan, because I think when you grow up like that,
you're terrified.
Yeah.
Yeah. And money's a big fucking deal.
Yeah. And even though things go well, you got to make sure, because you always had to have Plan B, Plan C.
It was on our collective mind as a family all the time. Yeah. Yeah. Money. Yeah. But you were raised by your grandma. Mm-hmm. And also, for some of you that don't know, Joy's an amazing writer. She's one of my favorite writers. She's written two really powerful kind of op-ed-y pieces. What would we call them? Op-ed-y pieces?
I would just call them essays.
Essays, yeah.
Personal essays.
You've written two that were fucking brilliant. And one of them, you were I found to be so powerful because I hadn't even thought. You and I both wrestle with some issues. Mine is with my dad. I was, I had a very, very hard time just liking him, to be honest. I was so disapproving of every decision he made in life. And by my own estimation, everything shitty about myself came from him and anything good came from my mom. So I was really hard on him. Yeah. And it's really layered. And then when this Me Too movement started, you had what I thought was just a really interesting take, which is, as I remember, you two had a hard time with your mom and you were pretty judgmental of her. And then realizing that, oh my God, she was a victim of, like, that set her entire life in motion. Yeah. Yeah. So did you come from home from the hospital straight to grandma's, or when did you move in with grandma?
I came home straight from the hospital.
To grandma's?
Yeah.
Yeah. And she wasn't acting like, you weren't calling her mom or anything?
No,
There's no Jeffrey Dahmer shit where you thought your mom was your sister or any of that.
Oh, really?
One of those famous serial killers, they were raised thinking their mom was their sister.
Oh, well, I also heard Jack Nicholson. I mean, he's not a serial killer, but I heard that was the same thing.
No, he is a serial killer as well. Okay. Yeah. it hasn't broke yet. They're waiting for him to pass, and then he's linked to like 26 murders throughout the Hollywood Hills.
That's fucked up. Fake news.
If I had to be murdered by someone, I would pray it would be Jack Nicholson.
Really?
Yeah, wouldn't that be an outstanding experience just before you go?
No, because
who would you want to be killed by?
I
already know.
Who?
I'm gonna out you. What? You would like to be fucked to death by Jimi Hendrix. If you had your dream death. Is it accurate to say?
Oh, okay. It can be anyone living or dead. Okay. Yeah, sure.
Right? Would that be top three?
That would.
Didn't you find a porno somehow at some point that
Dax.
was Jimi Hendrix?
Yes, and we watched it to see if we couldn't tell.
Yeah, we wanted to know if he had like a foot of log, right? Is that what our goal was?
Yeah, it was kind of janky because it was more so about like the women who were saying that it was him in the tape or like talking about it.
There was a lot of...
But like it wasn't the sex tape.
No, it was a big letdown.
It was a huge letdown.
We thought we were going to see lovemaking that sounded like crosstown traffic. Like we thought we were going to see the biggest purple haze, just something real messy. But it left us with more questions than answers, right?
Yeah, we actually watched that in between takes or whatever.
In fact, if you and I don't eventually get some sexual harassment case brought against us by some of the people on Parenthood, I'll be shocked because we also would watch. Joy and I would watch nonstop this video series about power of the penis with this woman who warned other women about the power of a man's penis.
Oh my God!
And how if he hits your walls,
you gotta hit the wall.
Yeah, if he hits your walls, your cognitive function goes out the window. We didn't
force anyone to watch. But we didn't even share it.
No, we didn't.
We talked about it.
But we talked about it, and we were watching it certainly within earshot of a lot of people.
This is true.
Yeah. So if we also...
since there's usually no women that work on the set, I mean, it was just dude, so, we should be okay.
But I think we had a sound guy we loved, Ron, Big Ron.
Yes.
And he could sue us for sure. Because we talked to Ron almost exclusively about what kind of swimwear he wore on vacation. And we had guessed and it had been confirmed that he does wear leopard print Speedos, which is spectacular.
Ron. We love you, Ron.
I just always imagine.
Wearing a bra? Yes, Ron. I'm wearing a bra. He had to ask me that because with the microphone,
you got to hide the little mic.
You have to hide the mic. You need a place to clip it on.
Yeah.
So he would ask me if I was wearing a bra.
Yeah.
But it was funny because it was just funny.
Again, one of those scenarios.
You wearing a bra?
You wearing a bra?
Yes, Ron. I'm wearing a bra today.
But you can see where a different actress. That's a weird situation because there are no women. Yeah. Like generally women in this business are having a microphone put on their bra by a man. I'd say at least 99% chance that's the scenario.
I think like dudes especially I think sound guys, they recognize that that's
awkward.
It's awkward. And no one's trying to cop a feel. I hope not.
Yeah.
But it's an awkward thing. But, it is funny to be asked if you're wearing a bra. Because anybody else asks me, are you wearing a bra? Fuck you.
Yeah,
the fuck you care about what I'm doing? Mind your business. But Ron's like, yes, Ron, I'm wearing a bra.
I am Ron.
In
fact, in 6 years, did you ever have to say to him, I'm not?
I think possibly a couple of times I might have said, not today, Ron.
And did he?
Today.
And then what? Any other day, Ron.
I'm free balling.
Not today.
I'm free balling today.
So, and then did he just get perplexed? Like, oh, what are we going to do now? How am I
Right.
supposed
Then you're
to?
just going to go to the thigh or something.
Okay. Which is,
That's so
there's
wrong.
there's no good
so
option.
wrong.
Yeah. Well, we used to even say,
No, don't even say it.
I'm not going to say
Don't
it.
even say it.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get sued by listeners.
Oh my God.
But you were raised in the Bronx, and what did your grandma do?
Well, actually, my grandmother, prior to me being born, I mean, she dropped out of school in like 9th grade to like work. I think she was doing like insurance, like working in insurance. A lot of my family worked like Blue Cross and Blue Shield and worked in insurance.
Medical insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Not like car insurance.
No. But when I was born, in order to take care of me, she quit her job and she went on welfare to take care of me. And she was somebody who never, I mean, we were poor. We grew up in the South Bronx, but she had worked hard her whole life and she had never, so for her to accept government assistance was a big deal.
Probably,
was a big deal.
Yeah, rough.
So yeah.
But you're even there.
And then she,
even
you know,
there,
she worked,
though,
and then she, to supplement that, she would do odd stuff on the side, like help people, you know, in their houses or whatever.
But
like that.
certainly a lot of your neighbors were also getting government assistance, yeah?
Not necessarily.
No?
I mean, it's a mix.
It was a mix. But there was shame regardless.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, like I remember, like did you get food stamps?
I didn't. Again, my mom, very prideful woman, and there were moments where we certainly should have had them,
Right.
and we didn't.
Right.
Or like my lunch fucking blew, and I was looking at the other kids that were poor, and they had the free lunch. Like they were
Right.
eating the pizza and the fries, and I had like a bologna sandwich, and it sucked.
With no mayonnaise.
Yeah, all
Yeah.
for my mom's pride.
Yeah.
No, but whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, I remember like being ashamed that we were on welfare, like, you know, being handed food stamps to go to the
But
store.
that
and
government
being
cheese,
really-
I just
well,
tweeted
but
about that
not
the other
ashamed
day.
of the government cheese.
No,
the government cheese was
it's-
actually because my grandmother was like the best cook. And to this day,
My favorite cheese is that government cheese.
well, to this day, the best cheese for macaroni and cheese
And a grilled cheese, I would argue.
is government cheese.
Yeah, because almost all my friends had that government cheese. And then they had the really gross looking like 70-ounce can that just had a picture of a pig on the side. You remember
was
that
that?
one?
What
It
was
was
that?
like a fucking can of pork. I don't know what part of the pig was in it, but it was just, it was, and I assume because of, English is the second language, whatever, they made it as simple as possible. There's a picture of a pig on it.
I
It's
don't
like a
remember
black
that.
outline.
It was cheese, peanut butter, cheese and peanut butter. Those are the biggest ones.
Make it work, motherfucker.
Right, cheese and peanut butter. You
Make
got
it work.
protein and fake dairy.
But so you started in public school there.
Actually, I started in Catholic school.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I went to Catholic school for like 6 years and then public school for 2 years. And then I got a scholarship to private school.
Yes, you were a part of the Fieldston Enrichment Program, right?
Yes, that is correct.
And what the fuck is the Fieldston Enrichment Program?
The Fieldston Enrichment Program took place at the Fieldston School, which is like this private day school, like fancier school in Riverdale, which is
Okay.
like the North Bronx.
Okay.
And so on Saturdays and then every day in summer. So basically I went to school 6 days a week and summer for my 7th and 8th grade. Like we would go to the school and there'd be other teachers from the district that we were in, which was District 9 in the Bronx, which I didn't know until years later was like one of the worst performing districts in New York City.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, of course, when I was there. But anyway, the teachers from the district would come to the Fieldston Enrichment Program, and that's when we would like get like intensive like reading, math, science classes. So basically
Right.
to supplement the
What wasn't
bullshit
happening
ass
in-
education we were getting.
Yeah.
And
Was this
then-
driven by you or your grandma?
no,
She like you got to.
No, I mean, I was always a pretty driven kid. I mean, she instilled in me that like the only way for me to get out of
Yeah.
the
But
environment.
she's signing you up for all this shit, obviously.
She's
right?
signing me up, but I'm knowing about this first. Like, we got to do it.
Right.
Right. So school, like private schools would go to, and I believe Fieldston was a part of a bigger umbrella of a Better Chance, which is is a national organization. So private schools will come to programs like Fieldston. There's a bunch of different programs like this, right?
Right.
And basically scope out their talented minorities.
Sure.
Because for them, they in theory want to diversify their student body.
Yes.
As we want to have a better
education. But they also, I would imagine, don't want to let someone in that's going to ultimately test terribly and their program looks like not a success. So they're kind of cherry picking, I'd imagine.
Exactly. Because like when you sort of go to programs like the one that I went to, that's to sort of help kind of get you kind of, it's going to weed out some people. It's going to also kind of get you in the mindset of like competitive academics and sort of environments, right?
Yeah.
So you want to set everyone up for success. The school wants like, viable candidates that's going to make them look good.
Yeah.
We want to get a good education.
Yeah.
So today
Are you being made fun of at this point because you're doing all this schooling? Is that uncool in your neighborhood?
I wouldn't say
like did they think you were uppity or anything?
I wouldn't say, I definitely got you sound like a white girl or you smart, so you white or whatever, but it wasn't, I never felt bullied.
Okay, good.
So it wasn't like that. That's just shit people say.
And you said you wrote about this, I believe in your essay about having kids.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is where I read it. Or maybe you just told me, but that you didn't feel like you were fitting in the black community because you didn't have a big ass.
Yo, that was another piece. That was the
I'm reading all your shit. I can't keep it straight.
Because I'm like one of your favorite writers.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You really are.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
No, so that was on the
You're
refinery.
like Hemingway. There's no flourish. There's like, it's just all the truth. It's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. But you felt skinny, right?
Well, no, because I didn't feel like I fit in. Like I didn't feel like I looked like what everyone else looked like
or at least wanted to look like, right?
Like,
because this is
really
80s
skinny.
Bronx.
Yeah, because I was born in 74. So this is, I
Run
went away to
DMC is
school.
happening?
Yeah. Because I went away to boarding school in 88. Oh, damn.
You were 13.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
That's a long time ago.
But I think weirdly, although they were very different, you and I straddled a bunch of different things where as a kid, you don't feel like you're a part of either of these groups. And maybe you're drawn to both groups and you're kind of playing a little bit in both, but for me personally, I feel a little bit fraudulent in both and it's really complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And then later in life, like so many things, it's like this crazy gift that you have.
Yeah.
It becomes this like the greatest thing in your arsenal.
Yeah. And like, I wish that, of course, like looking back, I wish that I had more confidence in just being, even if I was different.
Right.
I wish I had more confidence in that.
Uh-huh.
And I also wish that, for instance, like now when I think it's such a great time to, as a black person or as a black woman, especially to be like free to express yourself however you want,
right.
Like in a small way, just this fact of seeing like black kids skateboarding.
Yeah.
Every time I see a black kid on a skateboard, I'm like,
yeah,
progress.
yeah.
Oh my God, my people.
Or your hillbilly husband who's fucking black and he's got a beard driving a diesel truck on his way to go snowboarding. Blick.
A blick,
yeah,
right?
A
black hick.
hick.
But yeah, like anytime I see that, or like I was at this concert the other night, and there was an artist who opened up for this band, and he was this black dude, and he was just really just out there, and I was like, wow, I just love seeing black people be free to express themselves, and not.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure there's definitely still stigmas or people who talk a lot of shit, but like it's much more easier to be a black nerd or to be like there's more examples. I should say there's more examples.
More niches now.
There's more examples of that. So like if you're growing up now and you're seeing all of these people who look like you doing things that you're interested in, you feel more supported versus when back in the day when you're like, well, there's no internet. I'm sitting back thinking like I'm the only one that wants to go to space.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm like, I wish there was
groups.
Yeah,
on
you
Facebook.
find your tribe.
I think also the way that the television business has evolved, which I'm regularly lamenting at times when it's time to get paid or something. But what has happened, which is cool, is now the TV game is a niche game. So Netflix is stoked with 700,000 viewers. Back in the day, if you weren't getting 12 million viewers, they were not going to pay money. So now there's like hundreds of options of all these niche subcultures or cultures or whatever they are. And I think that's really kind of cool. something I don't really think about is that, you can kind of find the thing you're into.
You can find your tribe. And it was a lot harder to do that back in the day. I mean,
but for people who don't know, you started in the Bronx and now I know you went to Catholic school, but then you were a part of this. And then you went away to a boarding school in, what is it, Westminster?
Yeah, in Simsbury, Connecticut.
Which is all fucking white, right?
Yeah. So it was about 350 students, 9% minority. And I said minority. So that's like a blanket. That's for black.
That's a girl that's 1/18th Cherokee Indian too.
But yeah, so that's black.
By the way, when someone tells you they're American Indian, I just want to say I have a little ratio that goes through my head. So if I meet a dude that's like, I'm quarter Cherokee, I then multiply that by 0.25. I think people tend to exaggerate how American Indian they are.
Well, you know what? There's a point. Now, I wouldn't.
Would you call that? You told me in Bronx they call that red bone.
No, that's different.
That's different.
It's not just a Bronx. That's like a. Oh man!
Well, I'm not going to. I don't want to
to
trap you into speaking for the black community, but I feel like you can speak for the Bronx community in 1980. I can speak for Milford, Michigan.
Well, I want to go back to the American to the American Indian thing. Like, if someone were to say I'm a quarter, I would most likely, I mean, I think but you raise a point where, because like, you ever watch that show, like Finding Your Roots with Henry Louis Gates?
I'm aware of it. I've never watched a whole episode.
You should totally watch it.
Yeah. Every white person has like got a slave owner in their background.
Right. That's the one that Ben Affleck was like, can you just like scrub that from the record? And then almost derailed the show.
Yeah. And then
see how your people do?
Larry David.
But
he seemed to like he had the reaction of like I would have, which is they exposed that one of his relatives owned some slaves, and he starts laughing uproariously. He's like, I knew you'd find it. I knew, like, he came knowing that he was going to be embarrassed.
But what about Ty Burrell from Modern Family? He found out that he's actually a descendant of slaves.
Oh, really?
He's got black.
Really?
Yeah, you should watch this shit. It's really good.
All right.
But anyway, Henry Louis Gates, because there's a lot of black people who like over time like, oh, I got India in my family. That was, and sometimes it's, that's what they've been told.
Yeah.
You don't just make that up. It's what, anybody's family kind of just the family legend, we're descended of this, whatever. So that used to be something.
And it's always dressed up a bit.
Of course.
Like, we're the descendant of it.
So I think during that show and sort of his involvement in genealogy or whatever, he discovered, he's like, like that's probably for most black folks in America, that's actually not true. It's not accurate. So, but again, it's because of what's been passed down. Now, I did 23andMe.
Okay.
And I've always been told that we have Cherokee.
Okay,
right?
good.
I don't know which.
So you got your own song. Cherokee people.
Well, I'm not Cherokee. I don't know if
But I'm just saying, if you're going to find out you're American Indian,
right?
Sky's the limit if there's a song about it.
I'm 1% according to 23andMe.
1%.
Yes.
Cherokee.
I don't know Cherokee. I'm American Indian.
Okay, not so specific. They couldn't tell. I'm an anthropology major. I should know. They won't be able to tell you exactly what.
No, so I don't know where that came from. But I'm also 0.2% Ashkenazi Jew.
Okay, don't believe it. But anyways, I'm teasing. I actually don't do the ratio when a black person tells me that they're American Indian, which, by the way, almost never happens. It's more to me when a white dude tells me he's American, right, because you know me, I love 70s outlaw country,
right?
And all these guys all of a sudden decided they were American Indian.
Really?
Yes, like
who?
Well, I'll tell you, Waylon Jennings and oh my God, Hank Jr. They did a couple duets together. And in those duets, you find out they've given themselves American Indian names. So one of them's named Watashi and one of them's named Bocephus. And they have this kind of Arcadian, utopian idea of what American Indians' life was. I don't think so. I don't think Hank Jr. is really Cherokee. I just think it was like they were all excited to embrace that. And they had Watashi and Bocephus. Don't you know we would, Watashi? I'll be right here by my side. No sense of irony that they're calling each other American. Anyways, that's why I have the ratio. It really doesn't transfer onto black folks. I just take them at face value. But suffice to say, you went from a very black neighborhood. I
went from a predominantly black, Hispanic neighborhood, yes.
And you didn't necessarily feel like you were the, apex of whatever girls were trying to be then.
No, I was definitely not the. What's the opposite of apex?
The nadir. You were the nadir.
And then what's and what's like lower than that?
Nadir minus 10%.
Exactly, that was me.
And then you go to this fully white world.
Yeah.
In Connecticut, it, by my estimation, is like the whitest of the whitest of the white.
Pretty white.
Right? Because hillbillies we can maybe get into this, but you and I have invented the soul spectrum, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think just when you're poor and you're down and out, there's some soul action that happens, on the good end of it. So there can even be, there's some soul attributes to these weirdos living in Appalachia with their banjos and stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha. Yeah.
Whereas Connecticut is like, wear an ascot.
Waspy.
The Christmas tree is 11 feet tall. And it's got white lights on it, right?
Yeah, it's blue
or at least
blood.
that's my idea.
Blue blood.
Blue blood,
Yeah.
old money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you go there.
Uh-huh.
And are you scared to go there?
No.
You're excited.
I'm really excited because, like, following what my grandmother said, education is going to be my ticket out of here. So
Right.
as soon as I found out that I could go to school, not that I would
Mhm.
or could, but when I found out that I could go to school in fucking Hawaii, I'm like, what? I'm out of here.
Right, right.
So like I was excited to go away. But at the same time, it was a culture shock.
Yeah.
And I honestly, it wasn't so much even like, it was, I mean, obviously there weren't very many people who were, Black, Hispanic, or whatever. But the hardest aspect of the culture shock was not the racial part. It was the
socioeconomic.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I mean, I knew I was poor in the Bronx.
Yeah.
But then I really but that was but that was also in the scale of growing up in a sort of, working class, lower income, like low income to to
The
middle
highest
class.
income.
Yeah, to like middle class area. And then going there, it's like, holy shit.
Yeah. It is funny when you're a kid, you're largely unaware of where your immediate environment is ranking nationally or statewide or whatever.
Oh my God. Yeah. So that was like a huge shock. And it affected my confidence level because I thought that
feeling poor is bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're a kid, that's like,
it felt bad around other poor people.
Yes.
So imagine around rich people. It was just like, it was completely like, ugh. And like how it affected me for the first couple of years was sort of like, I thought that just because those kids were rich, not that they were white, but just because they were rich, that they had to be smarter than me, because why wouldn't you be, right? Because if you're rich, your family don't have to worry about paying bills. Your family don't have to worry about a place to stay, whatever.
Yeah.
You have plenty of food to eat. You can go to the best schools. So why the fuck are you getting these?
And we're conditioned to believe that being rich is a product of kind of elevated intelligence, whether it's through ingenuity or management or whatever. You link those things. You don't think of a dumbass as being a self-made millionaire.
Right.
They're kind of inextricably linked.
Right. So it fucked with me because I was just like, even though I still got good grades, it didn't outwardly affect my performance, right? But inwardly, I was just like, I can't even. And I think there was a couple of things that happened, but mainly it was that like I finally realized that if the dumbest kid in school was also the richest kid in school,
yeah.
Well, what the fuck is my problem then?
Right.
And then once
did you actually realize that there or after?
No,
you
there.
left?
No, there because. That like,
because I have all these realizations that I can't remember if I actually realized them then or I did.
No, I'm very clear. I remembered it then because like
you made a decision.
Once that clicked, then it was like, like I was high honors, not just honors, and I realized that at the right fucking time, which is like at the end of my sophomore year. So somewhere around my sophomore year, going into my junior year, which is like the most important for college. But once I realized that,
I got this.
Yeah. So it made it a lot. But going back to the race element, there was definitely shit where. Yeah.
So if I'm imagining being you, and I guess the closest I can come to it is being semi-recognizable from TV, right? So I'll be in a scenario where there's 15 people. And I'm having this battle in my head that I feel like everyone's staring at me. I'm pretty certain of it. And then another part of my brain goes, you're being an egomaniac. No one in here is thinking about you. And then I go, no, that guy's definitely taking a picture of me. That's some proof. And then it's just this back and forth of if I'm a megalomaniac or I'm actually conscious of, I am detecting like everyone here is fucking thinking about me. It's very uncomfortable. And so I have to imagine being one black girl in a class of 25 people. I feel like I would, even if I was wrong, be thinking, God, they must all be thinking about the fact I'm here.
Not so much. I mean, I think that like my confidence, my outward, my confidence level was shaky.
Yeah.
Because of this feeling like I wasn't as good as because they had more means, right? So I tended not to really raise my hand in class very much or whatever, but I wasn't really tripping on them, tripping on me.
Oh, okay. Well, by the way, that can go both ways because I also put a lot of energy into trying to be different in my class. I had a mohawk and then I had green hair and then I dressed different.
Okay,
and
so I did do that. I did do that.
Yeah, so I dug it. You know, I was obviously seeking that, which is weird because I've always been trying to do that.
Well, I did that on the level of like at my school, you had to play a sport, right? And before I got there, I ran track, I played basketball. But when I got to the school, I didn't know there was fucking all these other sports. Like what the fuck is cross country?
Right,
or what's
right.
Soccer.
Lacrosse.
I never seen soccer before.
Yeah.
Until I went there.
Yeah.
Or like hockey.
Yeah.
I played ice hockey.
Right.
Or squash. What the fuck
is squash? That's what you ended up playing, right? Hockey?
Yeah, but I actually I tried to play every sport. And for me,
did you play basketball? Or did you go,
I played basketball.
I'm not going to play the thing they expect me to play?
Okay, so that's what I'm getting at is that like I didn't run track until my senior year. I played basketball one season, but basically I was determined to play every other fucking sport than the one that
I'm not going to sing and dance for you.
Right. Even though like, well, okay, there is something to be said about basketball and track, whatever, but at the end of the day, that is what I played, right? Going in there.
Sure.
So I had this little chip on my shoulder, like I'm gonna show them that like
I'm the best swimmer in this state.
I actually definitely did not do that. I should have did swimming, but it's like I'm gonna show them that like we play hockey, we play squash. I'm gonna bust these white girls' ass. Like I was like, I'm gonna prove to them that I can play any sport I want.
That's kind of fun.
And then I finally ran track, and then like I did pretty good.
You were better.
It was like the best. And my coaches were like, why did you wait so long?
What a mixed bag of emotions to like shine and then be kind of bummed you're shining.
Exactly.
And like sandbag. And then, and that was a boarding school. So you're there, what, 9 months a year or something?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And then you would come back to the Bronx. And what was that transition back there like?
I mean, to me, it was pretty much the same. I mean, I think I had more confidence. I had more confidence in that, like, not that I thought I was different, but whatever I was, nerd, whatever, like, it was okay.
Right.
You know, and also the weird thing is that, you know, I had always felt really, like, insecure about what I looked like.
Right.
Physically, right?
I think that's a human condition.
Right?
Yeah.
And then, but when I went to boarding school, the fact that I was skinny was actually
what they were all going for.
Yeah. Which I didn't which was so confusing to me because I grew up in a completely different culture where that wasn't the ideal aesthetic, right? So I go to school where they're like, oh my God, your body's amazing. I'm like, I'd never heard that before. Not that I should be hearing that at 13.
Right.
But my point is that like I'd never been that girl.
Right.
So it oddly kind of gave me confidence to be
what you were,
what I was, right? But you can still get caught up in, I mean, I didn't have an eating disorder, but to sort of, to be caught up in that aesthetic.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But I needed to go that way in order to feel comfortable about myself. But I didn't really understand, like I couldn't understand, I didn't know what eating disorders until I got to school. And I'm not making, I mean, it's a serious condition. I had no idea what that was.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand it when I was there because I was just like, I don't understand. Why do you...
Well, there's all these weird things that pop up once people have a lot of money. Like it's like if food's scarce, then the notion of choosing not to eat it is preposterous. And I feel like there's a lot of these kind of realization, when people have the luxury of not worrying about X, Y, and Z, they start having other concerns. So I do think it's just interesting that you're not finding people choosing not to eat in a lot of places on planet Earth where food is scarce. It's kind of crazy.
What is the, and it's sort of like, what is the, I mean, at the time, I think things could possibly be different now, but I think at the time it was definitely a predominantly like white, I don't know which economic class,
right.
but I would assume upper middle class. To me at the time, it seemed that way. And because also when you think about where's that coming from? Is it coming just from like aspiring to a certain body type, which is Eurocentric, which is white, which is like, you know, skinny, blonde, whatever.
Right.
Possibly. I don't know the.
Well, I think it also evolves over the decades. Like now when you watch movies, almost everyone's got a great ass. And then I'll catch a movie like on from the 70s or 80s. And like the pinup girls, like, or, you know, whatever the height of the sexiest women out there, no, zero ass. Just no one even considered that they might need to work out their legs or their ass.
Right.
It was just all about big boobs.
Right.
Like in the 70s, 80s. So that aesthetic changes like decade to decade.
True. But the white aesthetic is pretty consistent.
Oh, okay.
I
believe you.
Still pretty consistent. But anyway, so I don't know the psychological like underpinnings of eating disorders because it is a real thing, right? And I think it does cross cultural lines, but I'm just going from my experience when I was there. Now there might have been eating disorders on the other side of people who eat too much. That's an eating disorder as well, right?
Sure.
But no one was striving for the thin aesthetic where I came from. So at the other place, they were, and so I fit in, so that made me more comfortable. But then, like, you know, that's a slippery slope.
So I guess it could do it could do a few things, but I imagine it could do one outcome would be you're at this white place and you feel like, oh my God, I'm crushing on this, and then you go home and you go, oh wait, I'm not, and then you go, oh, all these things are mental constructs. These are all like nothing's real. So this neighborhood has this aesthetic and then this one has this. So really there isn't an aesthetic. It's just kind of cultural, which could be liberating.
Right.
Or an outcome could be you feel out of place at both places. Or even third, the best outcome would maybe be, ooh, I'm unique in both these places.
It's all the above, actually. I mean, I think that like now I can say I'm unique in all these places. I think at the time it was both of those other things. It was sort of like going back and forth between sort of like, oh, okay, this is all bullshit or whatever.
Yeah.
To like, because you know, I think when you're still a kid, you want to fit in, you know, right?
Yeah.
So it's like,
again, that's what I was just saying. So we're processing all that stuff with a fully developed frontal lobe that an older person has.
Right.
It's impossible to remember exactly how you're computing all this shit.
Right.
Because your brain doesn't even work that way anymore, right?
Right.
Yeah. But then you go from there and you get into Yale.
I did.
Yeah. And you go to Yale.
I do go to Yale.
Oh, wait, I want to know one thing before that.
Mm-hmm.
Were you dating?
In high school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When was your first boyfriend that you can remember?
My freshman year.
Freshman year?
Yeah.
At Westminster.
Yes.
White dude or black dude?
Black dude.
Black dude.
Yeah.
Okay. And when's the first, because you told me a great story, but this was when you were in Yale, I think. When's the first time you dated a white guy?
In high school.
In high school? Mm-hmm. Freshman year and a half? Freshman.
Like junior year.
Grade 9.2.
Something like that.
And did that trigger any, like, did you go through a whole other phase of like evaluating yourself based on that?
Evaluating myself?
Yeah. Or it was just fine. It was honky dory. You met a guy you liked and that was it. It was simple.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like I wanted to be attractive to dudes. I just don't really care who.
Right, yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. That's another thing we share in common. Anyone who can give me approval, like I take all comers.
Yeah, I'm like, thank you. Wait, did you have another question about dating?
I have a million questions about dating some pervert, but continue.
Well, I was going to say about Yale and kind of
because you dated a dude from Michigan when you were at Yale.
Yes.
And you would go back to Detroit area. And grandma wasn't super
no, it wasn't
involved.
grandma. It was like
worse, like mom.
It was that was rough.
I guess I should have started this conversation by saying that Joy and I were on Parenthood for 6 years. We're playing an interracial couple. And yet in 6 years, there was only really a single episode that talked about that. The fact that I was white and you were black.
Yeah.
And I do not fault the show for this. I think it was an attempt to be post-racial, which like 8 years ago seemed like what you should do. Like, oh, this should just be normal. This doesn't need to be the topic that they go through all the time, which is fine. Whatever. Again, I'm not critical of it. But what's fascinating is as soon as they'd yell cut, all you and I talk about is black and white. And all we talk about is black and white for 6 years straight. We don't ever tire of the conversation. We both find it endlessly fascinating. And it is endlessly fascinating to me because I wouldn't have fucking majored in anthropology if I wasn't fascinated by like cultures and how we're different, and how we're the same, and what's the overlap and all this shit. So we never stopped talking about it. And
we're still talking about it.
And we will die talking about it.
We will die talking about it.
And we both, as I recall when I talked to you after seeing Get Out, you and I both loved the opening of that movie, right? And I could have watched, I mean, the movie's perfect. It's fucking perfect.
I started watching it again.
But I also could have watched a whole movie that was just that opening act of them talking about that stuff. I think when you date each other too, there's like yet another layer, because when you're in love with someone, all these fears come out. Like, will I be enough for this person? Am I attractive enough for this? All these things. So now that just like pours gas on all these other issues. So it's endlessly fascinating to me. But so I would assume, and you tell me, so you become like a master code switcher at this point, right? You can.
That's a really good. I mean, I think that damn near every black person in America is a
master code switcher.
You have to be.
Yeah.
I mean, in just even the most mundane situation. I mean, like, we all have to.
Well, and I think because again, a lot of these issues that everyone talks about appear to be black, white, or they appear to be this or that.
I appreciate you
or
saying
even,
codes. I appreciate you.
Okay. But even say I'm sober, and in AA people will go, my alcohol is my alcohol. And I always go, well, it's really just human nature, right? Or human condition. Similarly, so code switching, yes, obviously, much more dramatically you have to do if you're black and you live in the U.S. But
or
even
gay,
but me, like I went to UCLA. I go home, all my friends, many of them are in jail, some of them are missing teeth. I code switch. I go back there. I talk different. I'm different. I want to be more blue collar. I want to be more masculine, more all these things, and I do that, and then I'll run into some fucking executive who I want a job from, and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm a Harvard graduate, so I'm doing it too. It's definitely, it's more obvious, I think, on the outside. And you and I even had this experience. So you and I met before we ever did Parenthood together. We had met a couple times like out in public, and I just always liked you. And I feel like you and I had a similar acknowledgement of, oh, isn't this crazy? We're now at like, I could see in you, like they say another sailor always sees another sailor at sea. And I think you and I were both in places where I was like, how the fuck did I get into this place?
Well, they do say real recognize real, or sort of like imposters recognize imposters.
So we had met a couple times, and I just was immediately drawn to you. And then we started working together. And I will say we shot the pilot, but that was really brief. And then we came to do the series. And I do remember you, and I'm going to use the wrong words here, but all of a sudden you got blacker with me. Like I saw a side of Joy that was black. The only adjective I can say is blacker, which is wrong, but I'm just being honest. And then I had to tell myself like, oh, of course, like Joy's from the Bronx. This is where she's from. This is her too. But for me, it was an adjustment. And then I thought, oh, I guess this is maybe a compliment. Like you trust me to be that other side of you too. How do you make that decision whether you're going to let someone in your circle into like yet another layer? Is it conscious or not?
I think sometimes it's conscious. I mean,
because I too let you into a layer, which is I have a professional layer, and then I have like I'm gonna say shit that if someone read in a transcript, I'm fucked. But I'm gonna trust you, and I'm gonna talk how I really want to talk to you.
I mean, I think like as you get older, I mean, use discretion, and you figure out who to, I'm not gonna roll up to I'm not gonna talk to one of these studio heads the way I talk to you.
Right.
Unless you go and run the studio, which you very well could. And then in that case, I'm like, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Where my movie at?
Or my 3-picture deal.
Where my 3-picture deal?
So I'm not interested in Yale because who gives a fuck. But you then.
Wait, I do want to say one thing about Yale.
Please tell me.
Because I mean, I was there for 2 years, but whatever.
Yeah.
When I was in boarding school.
Well, can I just ask one question? How pumped are you when you get a letter that says?
Oh, I was so fucking. That's why I was so fucking pumped because I knew I was going to school there. I knew that.
Wow.
I knew it. I knew it. In fact, I knew it so strongly that I only wanted to apply. I mean, wow. I think about the shit that I used to. Anyway, I only wanted to apply to Yale and Brown.
No backup for you.
I was like, I'm like Yale or Brown. My college, my advisor was like, you can't just apply to 2 schools, and you can't just apply to 2 Ivy League schools. I was like, but I'm gonna get in.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can
Did
say
you get
that.
Into both?
I did. I got into everywhere. I
God
applied.
Damn.
But the others, I mean, I needed to apply to other schools because he was like, I cannot.
Do you have a strong admission letter? Do you remember it?
No, I don't remember. I'm like,
well, you're a good writer.
I mean, you got the right essay.
I tell myself I only got into UCLA because of my admission letter.
I think that I got into Yale because I was a well-rounded student, even though my test score, my SATs standardized were low on the low side.
Yeah.
There was a dude. I'm glad you brought that because there was a dude in school who had applied to Yale. He was in like an AP classes and he was in and he didn't get in. And so he never said anything to me, but I heard how she only got in because she's black. No, I got in because you're fucking boring. And then this, I don't really know him though, but I did know someone, a woman, or at the time teenage girl who I was friends with, friendly enough, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I got into like one of my safety schools was one of her reach schools. She's white, very well off.
Yeah.
And she didn't get into that school, but I did.
Right.
And she was like, you didn't even want to even go to that school. Like, you only got in because you're black. And I was like, here's the thing. I got in. Sorry. I was like, I got in because my grades are better than yours.
Well, right. That's great.
So,
but this is,
and I'm not, and actually when it comes to black, I'm not competing against you. So,
right. Yeah. This is something that comes up all the time when people argue about affirmative action, right? Because there are people who will say, and I've heard black professors say this, who are against it, which is very few, I suppose, that yes, so you'll get in and everyone will go, oh, you just got in because you're black and that's the wrong way to get in or whatever, which to me is preposterous because like, no, getting in's the fucking goal, not what people are saying to you.
Right. And what about those kids who get in because their parents went legacy?
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
That's affirmative action as well.
Oh, yeah.
You know, or the fact that
ugliest variety.
Right. Or the fact that you're a woman.
Yeah.
And so like I remember those 2 instances, like in terms of anything like related to or racist or anything related to race that I encountered at that school. Those were 2 of the biggest moments. I mean, and that's pretty good considering
Did they
where the fuck
hurt,
I was.
Or because there's what you said, which is fine if you're a fighter.
Well, it was.
How did it feel?
It felt incredibly dismissive. Right.
Yeah. Well,
and
someone's literally taking away your accomplishment with one sentence.
I can get the dude that I don't know saying that shit,
but
the woman that I do know, you saying that shit, and we supposed to be cool, but now I realize we ain't that cool because at the end of the day, you still looking at me like I'm a what? Yeah. So fuck you.
An American Indian. She's looking at you like you're a Cherokee.
Yeah, right.
She's like, this girl's 1% Cherokee.
You only got in because you're 1% Cherokee. Listen, get in where you fit in. Fuck you.
So
anyway, so that was my
yeah. Yeah. Boy, I don't know how I would. Because that didn't happen to me. Other than like, that didn't happen to me. I'm dyslexic, so I took this like 6-week testing phase in college so that I could not have spelling count. Basically, that was the reward if you were labeled dyslexic. And so I had people jokingly say that to me, but they really didn't do anything. It's not even comparable. You're going to get it because you're special. Yeah, because you get to take 2 hours on the test and you're whatever. Yeah. But that's not even comparable. Right. But so you. How do you, what were you majoring in at Yale? Or what were you going to major in at Yale?
I thought I was going to major in economics.
Okay. Thank God that didn't happen. That did not happen. PhD in getting played.
Exactly.
How did you get into modeling from Yale?
I was at a party. I went to a party with a friend of Yale in the city. There were fashion people there. Somebody was like, "Oh, wow, and you go to Yale? Amazing." And then I took.
And then you had kind of a. How long did that go on? Where you were modeling professionally? Because you were like in Europe all the time. You have crazy stories about being on a boat in the sand and shit like that.
I'm from I dropped out of Yale in '94.
Was that a hard decision?
No,
it wasn't.
No, I mean, I shouldn't say. Well, I didn't make it like immediate, but like I definitely. It was sort of like okay. It was hard in the sense that. It was a hard decision, but I still made it. Yeah. In the sense that like most people that I knew were like, this is the dumbest thing you could possibly do.
Yeah. But do you think you had set the mental target or goal as getting into Yale? Had you had the mental target of, I want to be a Yale graduate?
No, well, I didn't have the
like maybe the big accomplishment.
No, I didn't have the bandwidth. It's it wasn't even a conscious thing of like, my high school was harder than anything I've ever done.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was way harder.
Yale.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know, of course, that I didn't end up staying there long, whatever. But in terms of like, I should say this: that it was such an intense academic environment that I was burnt out by the time I got to Yale. Right. And it's funny because one of the sayings that people would say at school is like, the only A you need from Yale is the A in Yale. I'm just saying that because it sounds cool. But
that's how Stanford is, right? It's basically like everyone that gets into Stanford was getting a 4.0. Like if you got in, you then went there and got a 4.0. The hardest part is getting in. So they went to pass fail because it was kind of pointless.
Yeah, see, if I had gone to Brown, I would have probably done pass fail. But
you can choose there.
Yeah, I think like you can. I think you can actually do your entire thing can be. I think back then, I'm not sure now, but yeah, no. By the time I got there, I was burnt out. And then just sort of like life took all these different changes and lefts and turns and all this other shit where it's like, I couldn't wait to get the fuck out of there. Yeah. So modeling came at the right time. Yeah. And while the majority of people that I knew and cared about and whose opinions I cared about told me I was making a huge mistake.
Yeah, that's and hard.
That I regret. And I mean, when I look at it now, I'm like, oh, that was pretty risky because I was basically making a decision based off of like blind faith and gut. Yeah. And the fact that like I wasn't happy, so I got to do something else. Yeah. And that's not a luxury. That's a luxury. That's not something that someone who
you didn't have a 3-year-old kid and we're trying to.
No, I don't. Yeah. Well, I don't have a trust fund.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have parents.
Right.
I didn't have parents.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I didn't have anyone to fall back on. The only thing I could fall back on was me. So I was making a decision that people who are much more financially secure make. Like you can be risky when you got a fucking bank account full of shit. You know what I'm saying?
It's hard for 2 hours about how they talk about NCAA athletes. Like, I can't believe he left early. They should, like when they leave early. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? They have like a family to feed.
Yeah, like why
they're concerned.
So, So making a decision based off of
you're all you got.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you had an opportunity to make some money, so you started making money. Mm-hmm. Good money.
It was better than, $1,500 a month was better than Zit was making before.
Yeah. And it's all relative.
Exactly. Yeah. At the time, I wasn't working a lot as a model, but I was building, and I was working. And
I made $16,000 for the entire season of Punk'd, but that was twice as much as I had ever made in my life. So I thought I was sitting pretty.
Exactly. I probably made about the same. But that was way better than,
And you're traveling a lot?
Yeah, starting to.
And you befriend other models?
Yes.
Yeah. And what impact does that have on your self-esteem? Because if it were me, I could feel like it could just as easily make it worse or better.
It was both.
It was both.
It felt great to be considered beautiful. Yeah. And I'm not saying that that's a great thing. I'm just saying that at the time.
Who gives a fuck? This is how you felt about it at the time, right?
Now I'm like, I don't need to be told that. I don't need to be told that. Yeah. But at the time.
But again, that's a luxury. That can be all someone has. I'm not judgmental of that.
This is true, but to just be clear in terms of like, I know that's not that's
not your value.
I needed that validation. That I don't need the validation now.
Yeah.
I do,
but at the time,
I needed that.
Right. Yeah.
So to be considered beautiful or beautiful enough to be a model was a big deal.
Yeah.
To me.
But then there are people obviously above you on this ladder of success.
Yeah.
And then so that I can assume that you also feel shittier because these people are above you.
Well, there's always a hierarchy, right? Even in our business right now, there's like A list, B list. I don't even want to know what list the fuck we on.
Right. Yeah. I don't. Who cares?
We're not on the list.
I'm the kind where I pay my bills.
Exactly. So yeah, there's always that. And everyone wants to be the coolest, kid in the room or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think like, you're right when it says it's both things. Like partially it helped my confidence level, right?
Yeah.
I'm a model.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side, I felt I was still insecure. I was still insecure about like what I looked like and like, okay, what's the aesthetic? I didn't really have a vibe. I think like what's cool about models now is that like, just sort of like, what's your, you can have a vibe.
They stake a little claim on some look.
I didn't care about like fashion necessarily. I didn't care about, I wasn't, into photography. I didn't know anything about that. All I knew was like, I'm cute and I can make some money off of that. Yeah. That's all I knew.
Did you feel weird? Did you do a runway ever?
I did.
Did you feel weird as fuck?
Yeah, I was never very good at runway. I didn't do very much. I mean, I did some cool shows, but I was always so terrified. Yeah. And I could never get over it.
There's so many things I'd be happy to do in public. I mean, the list is so big before walking down a stretch of runway.
The idea,
I would feel so self-conscious about how my body's moving.
In theory, it's
half of learning how to act is literally what you do with your hands. No one talks about that. Like, I've taken acting classes. They don't tell you, what the fuck do you do with your hands in a scene? As soon as they yell action when you're new, you're like, wait, what do I do with these big distracting hands? Should I put them in my pocket? Should I cross my arms?
I remember you also saying, which I passed this on to someone else because I thought it was like the best piece of advice. You always gave really great advice, especially when it came to like acting, was that you said that acting was a confidence game. Do you remember saying that to me?
No. But I like it.
It was just like 2 months ago.
Well, I do remember saying that a lot in that what directing I respond to, which is like if you make me feel confident, I'm just 20 times better. But if I'm feeling like I can't do this thing and you're unhappy and I'm not doing then we're in bad shape.
So it was great advice.
But other people, I know weird people, not to name drop, but Channing Tatum. I've been going to the motorcycle track with him, and he's so fucking good, so quick, and I'm so angry because he's fast as shit. But he's a dude, and he was telling me he played football, he wrestled, he did all these things where people yell at you the whole time and tell you you're a piece of shit, and that works for him.
Wow!
And so like he right away went to like 5 motorcycle riding schools, and he loves getting taught. Whatever. He and I are just completely different. I aspired to be like that, but that's not how I.
You should be on Bear Grylls too. He was on Bear Grylls.
Yeah, he did like a backflip out of the helicopter.
You should totally do that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Marshawn, was it Marshawn Lynch?
I don't know.
Football player?
He did it? Was he a pussy?
Did you see that one? It was the best.
Because why? Was he scared?
Because he's beast mode, but he's scared, but he's real, but he's like, I'm about to put these hands on. Like he was like, it was amazing.
That's all you want to see. You want to see someone. You want to see everyone be the opposite of what you expect. So if you like Screech is on from Saved by the Bell, you want to see him like kill a buck with his bare hands and field dress it in 5 seconds.
You need to be.
And then you want to see Mike Tyson like crying because it's raining or something. I mean, I don't ever want. We share. He's our favorite person, right?
You should totally be on that show.
All right, I'll do it.
But confidence game. Yeah.
So you go from modeling and then you start acting. How old are you? 26?
Probably.
Okay. Antwone Fisher is the first big thing. And how do you get that?
I met with because I had done like this MTV movie with Beyonce.
Okay. The Queen or
King B, King Bay, called Carmen, like the hip hopper. So like the Carmen, like the based off of the opera Carmen, but it's like the hip hop version.
Okay. I don't know what the opera is that it's based off of, but that's all right.
Yeah, but it's
worthy of basing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that was at the top of 2001, and then I was I played Mos Def's girlfriend I got killed like I think before the opening credits of that movie Showtime with Robert De Niro and Eddie Murphy. Like I don't even think the opening, like I think it was like during the opening credits I like got killed. I think I didn't last that long.
Cold opening,
right? Cold open. And so I was I met.
Were you pumped to be in a scene with Mos Def?
Yeah, well, I met him because he was also in Carmen too.
Oh, wow.
So I was taking the rounds with my agent. I was doing like what is it, generals or whatever.
General meetings.
And I was on the phone.
Talk about the time to code switch.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was on the phone and I had a curling iron in my hand and it slipped and it burnt me minutes before I was supposed to go out and get it. So, I mean, I had I did a pretty good job of getting rid of the scar, but I mean, I had a full on face burn situation.
Trauma. Very,
So I rolled into the meeting with like a pack of ice on my face, or it might have been peas or something like that. And they were like, "Whoa!" And I was like, "Okay, I didn't want to not come,
right?
But I'm here." And so they gave me the script for. I think they gave me the script. Did they give me the script for Antwone Fisher? Or they told me about like Denzel Washington's doing this. And I'm like, never would I have thought that I would have been in the running for it, really. But when it was time for auditions, I was able to go in. I got the appointment, and then I got a call back.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah,
and then you did Antwone Fisher.
Yeah,
and now you've done this kind of fancy, for lack of a better word, movie. You're in like a fancy movie. Mm-hmm. So then now a lot of things start opening up. Yeah, am I right in that?
Yeah, no.
Is that what
a lot of things, which is what usually happens, right? Like you kind of
weird little things. So I was unpunked, and then I got to be in Without a Paddle. I'm not quite positive how I got that,
but doors open for you.
But Mike Judge, who I had done some episodes of King of the Hill, but once Mike Judge put me in Idiocracy, now other people who love Mike Judge were like, oh,
yeah.
So then Favreau put me in Zathura, and that's I think primarily based on that he dug Mike Judge. And, well, fuck if I So it's weird how it all
doors open. Yeah. And so some doors definitely opened.
Yeah. And so you start becoming recognizable. You're in Honey. I think that's the first thing I knew you in is Honey.
That was the next year.
Yeah. And now we're starting to meet other famous people. This is roughly around the same time for both of us, right? 2002, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
And what we both share in common is that we both slept with a lot of celebrities.
Oh my God.
When we had an opportunity to.
You better not say no fucking name.
I'm not saying that. No. I would never say a single name. But you and I have talked a lot about the fact that we have done that when given the opportunity young. And I can only speak for myself in that's an interesting whole journey for me. One is I was just horny, and that's awesome.
Well,
and
we're young.
Yeah, you're young, you're horny. And you've maybe seen them in something and you already thought they were attractive in that.
Well, it's like you have access. I mean, it's access, right?
Yeah.
Like for instance, a friend of mine won an Oscar. We're not going to say his name.
Right.
Won an Oscar recently.
Okay.
And I'm like...
Well, you can't say recently because there's only a...
Okay, well, my friend... Okay, fine. My friend won an Oscar.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, this is great. I mean, aside from the like career opportunities that are open.
Yeah.
I was like... But this is like the best dating thing like you could ever want.
Yeah.
Like
bring
now
it
you just
on
have
first dates.
And it's not, I'm not even, not to be creepy. I'm like, but your whole access is just like you have different access now, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, what's the Chris Rock joke is men are only as faithful as their options, which is a dangerous thought. But I'm just curious again because I think we you and I share a lot of things in common, and for me, there was just. Again, I'm horny. I've seen them before. That's exciting. This is very exciting. But what was really going on upon closer examination is I too never liked how I looked. I thought it was funny. I was really confident that I was funny and I could dance. And those two things got me into a lot of beds I had no business being into. And I've been doing this since junior high, which is, oh man, that girl's out of my league. If she likes me, it'll prove to me that maybe I'm not as unattractive as I think I am.
Yeah.
Because that person can pick anyone and they pick me.
And they pick me.
And so I must be better than I think I am, right? And so this is a myth I believed in for 30 plus years until I actually woke up in a relationship with someone who I would have thought I had no business ever getting, saw them in movies for years as a kid, and sad for me, discovered I don't feel any different about myself. It has zero impact on how I actually feel about myself,
right?
Which is such a fucking bummer.
Yeah.
And it took me, again, I'm weirdly grateful for the opportunity to have been able to prove this to myself.
Right.
I got to be with someone that I thought for sure would solve this for me.
Right.
It would definitely prove
right.
that I'm an attractive human being.
Right.
And it didn't. I felt the exact same fucking way when I went to brush my teeth in the morning. And I'm just curious if for you, of course, you were horny and young too. But do you think any of that was going on?
Yeah. I mean, I never really thought of it that way, but it does make sense. I mean, I think like, similar to like modeling, I needed that validation to know that I was cute.
Yeah.
Or something, you know? And, and I think that like, so that at my core.
By the way, you have a much better excuse for it than I do. I just was, I don't know why I felt that way. I'm 6'2", white with blue eyes. I hit the lottery, you know, like
white boy day.
Yeah, exactly. White boy day for me all day, every day. And yet I still feel that way.
Yeah.
You at least have the excuse where you were in a place that was either all white or you were in a black community where you didn't fit the ideal. So
right, but at the core of it was sort of this sense of inadequacy, right?
Yeah,
and so
100%.
we look for validation wherever we can get it.
Yes.
So whether it be for me, it was like, okay, I'm validated by the fact that I'm in the beauty industry or whatever, or I'm validated that this guy thinks I'm cute. You know. Well,
I was getting it secondhand from you. A couple of your folks, I was like, God damn, Joy, I tip my hat to you. Because you know what I respect about you is there was a level of sophistication to who you were hooking up with too.
All right.
You know, artists and geniuses.
Oh my God!
Like you would have banged Einstein, right?
Totally.
Yeah. See, and I love that about you. Yeah. In fact, we used to play this.
My
game.
boyfriend in college
was Einstein.
Basically, he was an inorganic biochemist. I don't even know what that is, but it was like that sounds sexy.
He didn't even find
Can you
out
make
what
drugs?
that was.
Oh, okay, let's do it.
Yeah, but you do. I remember, and this is just a compliment. This is the only name we'll say. And you didn't sleep with this person. You did not sleep with this person. But you said out of the blue one day, you're like, you know, if I had to pick from that whole crew who I would sleep with, it'd be Seth Rogen. And I was like, I love you. Like, you know what I'm saying? You have a curated.
Well, finish
aesthetic.
the thing versus who?
Was it Franco?
Yeah.
And Franco's a fucking babe. We both agree he's a babe.
Total babe.
But then you went to this other place where what the experience is going to be like with Seth. And I just really
I just believe it'd be a much richer experience.
Yeah.
For reasons you'd have to check on the website. I might enumerate on the website.
But again, it's those picks that make you so wonderful.
Well, you know, I liked, you know, I like to keep people guessing.
Yeah. I would never feel confident in predicting what you were going to pick on any given thing, whether it was what movie you liked.
Wild card.
Yeah, that's a good quality. Mm-hmm. So then another thing that you and I both shared, again, in our 20s.
Do you know Seth Rogen?
Yeah. No, I don't. I'm Twitter. We're friends and I've met him 5 times. I thought for sure he didn't like me, but then he tweeted me, and then I thought maybe he did. I still play this game in my head of who likes me and who doesn't like me. It has less impact now, but I still go through the steps. Yeah. It's like muscle memory at this point.
I was going through it the other day, and I was like, why does...
what a waste of time.
What a waste of fucking time. No one cares. What are you talking about?
No one's thinking about you but you.
No one's thinking about you but you. Yeah.
And what I have at least come to find out, and this will come up when we talk about kids, is I have figured out that nothing from the outside changes how I feel on the inside. Like it is truly, it's your own journey. Until you give yourself approval, you're fucked.
Yeah.
It just, you can't make enough money. You can't win enough awards. You can't fuck enough people. It has zero effect on your own self-esteem. You have to you have to identify some esteemable acts and do those fucking acts.
Ooh, esteemable acts.
That's how you get self-esteem.
Yeah.
So you and I both like drugs. But unlike me, you're not an addict. Or by my estimation, you're not an addict. Or what I would call an addict.
I've abused.
But you've abused, which I love. My favorite type of person, you know my best friend, Nate.
Mm-hmm.
Nate was this guy all through his 20s that he could do, he'd do coke with me, but he'd go to bed at 5 and I'd stay up another day.
Mm-hmm.
But I always applaud. I'm more interested in the dude who actually can go berserk and then just isn't an addict. That's kind of the dream scenario for me because I still want to get fucked up. I just don't want to do it 7 days a week and not show up for shit. Exactly. If I have to pick, I'm not picking someone who doesn't want to do any of it.
And no one's got time anymore.
No one's got time for a cold.
A cold? My allergies.
Yeah.
I just think about like the amount of time wasted. I mean, listen, you have fun, whatever.
Some of my best memories. Right? I don't regret it.
But the amount of time, so much time wasted of like recovering or whatever. And it's like, I don't even got the fucking time, man. But it's funny because I feel like when you're young, or at least when I was younger, you had all the time in the world. Oh, right? Yeah,
you didn't really have to be anywhere.
You have no time. I mean, and I'm saying that as like, I worked a lot as a model. I wasn't like, I got a job. I mean, once I hit my stride, which fortunately for me happened relatively soon, I was working all the time.
Yes.
You might not have seen me and shit, but I was working a lot.
But in your 20s, you can sleep 4 hours and work.
Exactly.
You cannot do that in your 40s.
And also, too, I could sleep or not sleep and work.
Yeah.
Because all I got to do is not look fucked up.
Right. Yeah.
Right? I don't have to talk.
I couldn't do that.
I don't have to talk. Because no one cares what you say. So I'm not there to talk. I'm there to fucking stand there, rock the clothes, and then like whatever. So, I mean, there were some rough times.
It's a great job for someone who likes drugs.
Right.
It really lends itself.
But then it eventually will catch up with your ass. Yeah. But, but it's like, you used to have all the time in the world, and now there's not enough time. I can't even imagine doing a fraction of the shit from back in the day because I'm like, there's no time. I got no time.
Yeah. But not unlike fucking people, I think there's a parallel as well with drugs, which is for me, for years, I thought, I just like how cocaine feels. Mm-hmm. I like how ecstasy feels. Mm-hmm. I like how being drunk feels. Mm-hmm. I now realize what I really liked about those things is how I didn't feel. Mm. The real appeal of them was I didn't feel how I felt when I was sober. So I would have liked any of those feelings. Like they're all different highs, but I liked all those highs. The only high I didn't like was weed per se, because it actually made me feel even more how I didn't want to feel.
Gotcha.
Which is just genetics, I think, right? Because you respond to weed differently than I do. Boys, yeah. I'm a Hoover with cocaine, whatever. But yeah, figuring out like, what I liked was the relief from my head, which is very busy. It's too busy. And then a very loud voice in that head is, you're a piece of shit and you'll never succeed. And everyone thinks you're crap and you're crap,
Right.
Do you think any of the reason, because look, some people like drugs and some don't, even if they try them, they're like, I don't know. And my opinion on those people is that their normal state of being is probably pleasant enough that it's not relief for them. Do you think at all any of that was relief for you?
I mean, I liked drugs. Yeah. I liked them. I mean, also too was sort of like the scene and the social sort of I liked that kind of thing. And it definitely made me feel cool.
Yeah.
Because I was always terribly uncool. So I was always looking for something to be cool.
Yes.
Right?
Well, it immediately puts you on the same page as everyone else you're doing drugs with. So you go from like, you're looking at all the ways that you're different from this group of people you're with or how you don't fit in or whatever. And then you start doing lines of coke. And now you all have one fucking goal. Keep doing those lines.
Right.
Now we're identical.
Right.
We just want to keep this shit coming into our nose.
Right.
Which is nice.
Right.
Everyone's priorities
Until
get
the sun
real
comes
specific.
up and you're like, fuck. And then it's like, well, close the shades. But yeah, I think that like, I can't say that my drug use was not influenced by my lack of, sort of self-esteem, like I didn't have issues underlying. Yeah. Right. But I think that for the most part, when to frame it in a way of like what I felt like not high, I didn't feel like I was I was running away from anything.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So you were generally.
I think mine was like partying gone too fucking far.
Right. Okay.
But you can still do that too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Look, a lot of people do it in their healthy and have great self-esteem and whatever. That wasn't my
scenario. Mine was like, well, you can still take fun too far. Like there's too much. You can have too much fun.
Yeah,
like you really can, and you could die from too much fun.
Yeah, we know people,
right?
I know a lot of people.
Yeah, me too.
This is a compliment. This is not a judgment. You have kind of again, this is the wrong word, but a curated lifestyle in that you have like a bohemian vibe. So when you said like it was a part of I can see that being like, oh, well, this is a component of this cool vibe I have, or this.
Right. As my friend calls it, you live a chosen life, right? I choose, like I've chosen, curate is the.
You're choosing shit out of a pile. When you curate.
I've created this life for myself.
Yeah, but you've always had a specific style, like a clothing style. You have had an aesthetic that's.
I've had this sort of like
it's a touch bohemian.
A touch bohemian with a little something, something.
Dash of this, dash of that.
A little sprinkle of this, a little dash of that.
Yeah. But
a little peppering of this.
In the years that we spent a lot of time together, like whatever that was, 7 years or something, you were processing a ton of mom stuff, right? That seemed to be the period where you really kind of tackled all that and you did a lot of therapy about that. And so is it possible that maybe you were a little more bummed than you realized you were in your 20s? Because that was all sitting there, right?
Oh, no, for sure. I mean, like what? All those things are underlying.
Can I just say one thing? This is the thing. I have to imagine, for me, as I started having success, I ended up weirdly becoming more resentful at my dad. This is all so fucked up. But for me, I felt like I wanted that male in my life who I respected my whole life to then pat me on the back and say, great job, son. You worked hard and I'm so proud of you. But because my dad, at times, not always, lovely man, was kind of using my success to get his own attention. And I didn't respect some of his decisions, so the pat on the back didn't feel like what I wanted it to feel like. I have to imagine you have to have some of that where you've done all this stuff. It's really amazing, and then you don't have this relationship with your mom, who's who you really want to hear. Like, oh my God, I'm so proud of the woman you've become. Right,
and even like your situation with your dad. Even if she did say that, I'm not going to believe you because it's full of shit because of what
they can't win. I've now come to find out they just can't win.
But at the same time, it's like while I've learned to have to truly forgive her, to truly honestly forgive her for the things that she did, and to have compassion for her and some empathy. It doesn't negate, and I realized that like I at times was crueler than I needed to be.
Oh, yeah.
But it doesn't negate the shit that she did or didn't do.
Yeah.
Legitimate shit.
Yeah.
That made it hard for me at the time of being a young woman or whatever to look past, because like that was impossible shit to look.
Yeah.
Right. And I didn't have the tools to even try and figure that out.
Yeah.
I didn't really learn the tools until it was too late.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because
I shouldn't say too late, but until much later on.
Yeah. It's really hard to recognize that life is fucking messy, and your parents are a part of this messy life, and especially when now that we're older and you go back and you go, well, Jesus Christ, I'm furious at my dad for a decision he made when he was 24 years old with 2 kids. Like when I was 24,
my mother was 15 when she had me.
Yes. Like, what could you expect from a 15-year-old? I wouldn't let a 15-year-old watch my kids, much less have kids then make great decisions.
Right.
And it's so hard to break out of your first-person perspective.
I think that's why parenting is so hard. I mean, like, that's why people ask me, I'm like, I'm very clear. I don't want to fucking even enter into that shit, man. I'm good. Like, more power to anybody and I hope that people, when you do have kids, that you take that shit seriously and you work on your shit so you don't ruin your kids. But even still, even with best intentions.
Oh, you're going to fuck up.
You're going to fuck up because you have to, because you're human.
Yeah.
That's a job that it should be a conscious like decision.
It should be your number one job.
It's your number one job.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. Again,
there are definitely people who should not have kids.
Yeah, probably.
Definitely people who should.
I don't know if David Duke reproduced, but I wish he hadn't if he did. So over the years, I love to argue, as you know, I love to. I'd say I could class it up and say I love to debate, but I love to argue.
You love to argue.
I love to argue
and debate.
And I got to say that you more than any other person has dramatically won some long-term debates.
I know one. I know one that I've won.
There's a few. There's a few. And it's interesting because, I appreciate you because it's wonderful to have someone in your life that proves you wrong often. And you've done that a few times in some landmark cases.
And you're also man enough to come back and be like, you know what?
Yeah, it's never been in the moment. It's always like I think about it for a couple days.
And that's okay.
Yeah, and I hear other people like repeating my own opinion to me, and I go, "Oh, that does smell. That's kind of
shitty.
Yeah,
that stinks."
Or just you're trapped in your own perspective, which is almost impossible not to do, right?
Right.
So one of the long-term debates we had was about Chris Brown because I was so irate about Chris Brown. I wanted to find him and fight him. I couldn't say enough bad shit about Chris Brown. And you pointed out that the reaction, it was lopsided.
Right.
You are obviously not condoning any domestic
and I don't give a fuck about him.
Yes. But I said this guy's a fucking piece of shit, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, yeah, he's a piece of shit, but he's no bigger a piece of shit than the countless white dudes who've been caught beating their wives.
Or doing other type shit and they get like shows and movies and riches.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I tried to say, well, I think it's a lopsided reaction because we all already love Rihanna. Like for me, I love Rihanna, and to see her face afterwards sent me into like a fury, right?
I love her too.
But then you pointed out, and these are just public knowledge cases. This is an inside scoop.
Oh God,
right?
Don't even blow up my spot. Right? Did I say something crazy?
You didn't say anything crazy. Okay. These are known. Like Charlie Sheen's been arrested for hitting right one or two people.
Yeah,
and then Brolin has been arrested.
Apparently, Ozzy Osbourne back in the day.
Oh yeah, Ozzy Osbourne beat
and
up
now
Sharon.
We're talking about just about domestic violence, right? But now we see that there was a whole other lots of shit going on of white dudes behaving badly. Although now we're seeing that it's not just white dudes, obviously, but that was the
men in general. Men in general have poison in their body. It's called testosterone. So.
Yeah.
Oh, here I feel like we might get into one now that I have to apologize later.
No, it's fine.
But yeah, you pointed out that there were like, when I said Rihanna, I'm like, well, no, we already love Rihanna. And you were like, well, Josh Brolin was married to Diane Lang.
Yeah.
Is that who it is?
Yeah.
And we're like, you love her, right? And I'm like, yeah, that's Cherry, right? In The Outsiders. Yeah, I love her. You're like, huh.
And that's what the allegation, that's what we're saying.
And when I really molded over for days at a time, I was like, if I'm being honest with myself, when I picture Josh Brolin, he's an actor I love. I don't see him the way I saw Chris Brown. And when I picture Charlie Sheen, I go, oh, that's one fucked up guy.
Yeah.
Isn't he crazy?
Oh, Ozzy.
Yeah. Ozzy's biting heads off of bats.
Yeah.
It's a whole persona. But no, he beat up Sharon, who I love, personally I love. And then she's been honest about that. And he's been and you're right, man. I really, it's way easier for me to see Chris Brown as an actual bad person. Whereas I'll give everyone this spectrum. I'll go like, oh yeah, he, so-and-so does too many drugs, but they do all this other stuff.
Right.
Which by the way, I believe is the right perspective in general. Just people aren't fucking good or bad.
Exactly.
They're not evil or saints.
Right.
We
got to stop thinking in this sort of binary way because bad people do good things, good people do bad things, and then everything in between.
Absolutely.
Right.
And if I can go off on a tangent, I think what's crazy is we are getting into this world of binary opposition, right? Where it's they're good or they're evil. And then what we're going to do is if someone does something bad, we're going to lose everything great that they do. Yeah. So Martin Luther King, he had orgies. They were recorded by the FBI.
Were they really?
Yeah,
he had affairs.
No, they mic'd a room at.
He had an orgy.
Yeah, I
don't know about that.
We'll fact check.
Yeah, but he was.
Suffice to say, this dude liked pussy, and
he was unfaithful to Coretta. We're gonna stop right there.
Yeah. Well, generally like pussy. Would we rob ourselves of the civil rights movement to punish him? You know what I'm saying? Or JFK, who was fucking White House staffers in the hotel pool. Do we deny ourselves JFK? Right. It's just all very, by the way, I'm not saying yes or no. All I'm saying is wow, this is a tricky situation where we're talking about
there's a lot
throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
There's a lot of gray.
There's so much gray.
And
there's more gray than there is black or white.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's very hard for us to come up with a criteria.
There's like a thin sliver of black, there's a thin sliver of white, and the rest is just shades of gray. Like, and there's a lot of gray. You have charcoal gray.
And it gives us anxiety because it's hard to come up with a framework by which we're going to evaluate all these scenarios and then administer some kind of punishment. And that, I think just that alone is too daunting for people.
Yeah.
So it's just almost out of laziness that we have to go good or bad, good or bad.
Yeah.
And you know, it's hard fucking work, but those distinctions just have to be made.
Well, I mean, going back to our parents, for instance, right? Like for so long, I saw my mother's being a monster.
Yeah.
I'm just going off of what I saw.
Yeah.
And my experience.
Which, by the way, she was only with you, 10% of her life? So you're also seeing 10% of your mom.
Right.
She wasn't with you 90% of the day.
Right. But like, I'm going off experience and what I see and what I hear.
Mm-hmm.
And so based on that, it's fair to assume why I would think that she was a monster or she was a bitch or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But when I got older and started to sort of see all that, like, okay, well, she was that way because of.
I'll also say, so she was 15, but how old was your dad? That's so relevant. And this is what you just wrote about.
He was not 15. He was not a teenager.
In his 30s?
I don't know the exact age, but he was a married man with children.
Okay. Yeah.
He was an adult.
Put it into that, when you think about that scenario of like a fucking dude with kids and a wife knocking up a 15-year-old.
My mother was basically trapped in trauma for her whole life, but I did not know that.
Yeah.
So it's like,
well, by
when
the way,
I got older,
even if you knew it, it's not to say that.
Even when I found out, because of where I still didn't have the tools to deal with her, and so it still didn't really. It mattered, but it didn't really. Yeah. I still wasn't able to cope with her.
Yes.
So, but as I got older and learned the tools, right, then I started to see, okay, yes, she did but she did that because she wasn't just evil for evil's sake.
Yeah.
No.
That's what
I could have easily have. So that's when I started to really embrace the sort of grayness of things.
Yes.
And
also, you know what it is? And I think a lot of people have a hard time doing this, is they have a hard time distinguishing between an explanation and an excuse. So like when Tiger Woods went on TV and said, I had all these affairs or whatever, and I'm a sex addict. People said, oh, that's a fucking excuse. And I was like, no, hold on. It's not an excuse. He's just explaining to you what's happening.
Right.
That's my takeaway from that whole scenario. But likewise with your parents, I know that when I heard the explanation of why my dad was the way he was, I was hearing an excuse. And I was going, bullshit. That's not a fucking excuse.
Exactly.
You still got to take care of me. And
exactly.
You still got to come to my games.
I agree.
You got to do all this shit.
I agree.
But now,
years later, I'm like, oh my God, that was actually an explanation.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point.
I don't need to own up to this, or I'm not sorry.
Yeah.
That's not what it's saying. It's just going, just so you know, here's how I got to this point. I feel terrible and I own it.
Right.
And here's how I got here.
Right.
If you're interested, and I am interested in how you got there.
Right.
But you gotta have a good spot in your heart.
You better write that down.
Okay, I'm gonna jot it down right now. But the Chris Brown one was a good one, which I totally was wrong about.
What's the other one?
Well, the other one was, and I leading up to this, I was trying to recollect my actual argument, because my argument is going to sound so shitty right now, but because this is all I really remember about it. But the year in which there was tons of outrage that there weren't more Black nominated folks for the Academy Awards.
Yeah.
Here was my take. And let me just try to get it out before you point out what a bad theory this is.
No, I think I remember what it is.
Here was my argument. You can't, Black community, I'm addressing everyone in the Black community right now. You can't be angry that there's no Oscar nominated Black directors, writers, actors,
films,
because you can't just be mad that they're not nominated if you're not supporting the type of movies and projects that get nominated. So in that year, you had Concussion, which was fucking brilliant, and it made $5. And then you had a Medea movie that made $1 bazillion. And I was saying, well, if you're going to just go to the Medea movies, they're not going to make the Concussion movies. That's the mechanics of
Concussion is not necessarily like
it's not. But he was one of the main complaints of why he didn't get nominated. That was part of.
He should have been.
Yeah. Regardless, he's definitely in that conversation.
Right.
So my point was, you can't not support those type of movies and be mad that they're not getting made, and then mad that their people in them are not getting nominated.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can only blame other people so much for what's now happening way downstream. The award is so downstream. There was already a movie made. There was a movie.
I thought your point was something else, though.
No,
but you had another point too.
What was do you remember a point that I don't remember? Okay.
Your point was like,
I'm so scared to hear.
No. Because like, I don't remember anything you just said.
Oh, you don't?
No. Like, and that doesn't make sense. Okay. But.
Well, no, because I'll know I told it to you because you had the best knockout punch to that whole thing, which I hadn't even thought of. Is you go, white people ain't going to these movies that are nominated either.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, knockout punch. Okay, that's true. Okay. None of those movies that were
was my
nominated.
response, but yes. I thought your other point was that
black people should just never be nominated.
Well, it was something about well, you know, this movie in the market and like the audience and like that these movies perform better or something like that. And I thought I was like, yeah, well, why
it's mostly just
ain't nobody going to see the fucking King's Speech,
right? Well, that one they did, but so many
a lot of white people
they didn't go see Moonlight. They didn't go see.
Wait, no, Moonlight is.
That's black.
Yeah, okay. White movie.
Move on. But you know what I'm saying? There's a
lot of white movies that nobody goes exactly $5
absolutely
because they're not made to make money. They're made for that reason of sort of prestige and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
If they make money, great. I mean, they will eventually make money. But
let's just even be more honest. They're all made with the hope by the guy or woman who bets on that movie that the star power will take it out of the genre and it will make money. So it is a leap of faith. They actually do believe, we're going to cast Brad Pitt in Babel, so it will make money. Even though we're going to make Babel, no one's going to see Babel, but we put Brad Pitt in it, then they will. Whereas that's a trickier bet with Denzel Washington, or he's a bad example because white folks go see his movies like crazy. But you know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, I think that whole idea of sort of who means something, who doesn't. I mean, sort of because you can still put that's why I think there's certain people. There's not as many people that put people in the seats like there used to be.
Oh, not at all. Not at all.
So like that whole idea of like, oh, well, this person doesn't mean anything. That person means something. Like, you can put that white star in some shit and people still ain't going to go fucking see that shit. Absolutely. So you might just put somebody in it.
Weirdly, Denzel's one of maybe the only people that still people go see that fucking movie for the most part. It doesn't seem to matter.
Dwayne Johnson?
No, but you put Dwayne Johnson in a movie where he's not kicking someone's ass at some point. I don't think.
I mean, I think that he's actually. I mean, I think that he's like.
He's pretty indestructible.
I think he's kind of.
I don't think you could put him in a drama.
Oh,
where he's got cancer. I don't know. I mean, first of all,
I don't want him to be in a drama.
It does be hard for him to shave weight for that role.
But I think like at the end of the day, I think that the core of that is basically what we're saying is that like. The fucking criteria for shit is way different for black people than it is for white people. Like white people can just like, okay, we're gonna make this like bullshit ass movie and nobody gonna see it. And then like with us, we gotta jump through who's you don't sell.
Well, my critique
doesn't sell overseas. This bullshit ain't selling overseas either, but you made it. Like, come on.
Yeah. So again, you really, really won that. I don't think you ever though made the point you thought I was making. What is the point you think I was making?
That I thought it was more about for some reason I thought you meant more like international or sort of like people going to see or like movies movies performing well.
Well,
right?
what I can tell you,
because black people do show up. I don't think that, and I try not to. I'm trying not to talk about movies as black movies, as white movies. Trying to get away from that, even though that's what the industry like sees it as. But like, black people will go show up for some shit. Women will go show up for some shit.
Yeah.
Make some shit that people want to see, and they will show up.
Yes, but what's unfair about that is the movies that people show up to see are generally not the movies that are nominated.
Right. Well, that's regardless whether it's black, white, or whatever.
Yes,
like that's just like
but
that's
to
what
your
it
point, the white movies still get made.
Oh yeah, and I mean, and it is hard to make a movie regardless, right?
Oh it's impossible.
No matter even if you are white.
Yes.
But
yes,
it's easier.
Well, and you and I have talked about this, and this is, I feel like a good time to bring this up is this term white privilege. I first and foremost completely understand and believe in.
Mm-hmm. Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Remember we went and saw Talib Kweli.
Are you going to have him on your show?
I hope to.
You better ask him. That's your buddy.
Yeah.
You better get him on
Qual. Here. Remember, I found out all of his buddies call him Qual at the show, and now I just want to call him Qual.
You guys are friends now.
When we went and saw him on stage, which I thought was cool, is he goes, well, first of all, let me tell you my privilege. I'm a man. That's a big win for me. I was born in America. That's a huge win for me, right? And he kind of goes through it, which I thought was really cool. But the reason I think that the term white privilege, why it's so easy to want to fight back from that, if you're white, is nobody's life feels privileged. No one feels like their life hasn't been a struggle. So I am born on a dirt road, dyslexic, all these things. Like, to me, it has felt like a struggle. So it's
to
hard,
exist as a human being, not
yes.
necessarily, but
the humans,
your race gives
it does.
Angle to it.
It does.
Because being a black person who grew up on a dirt road and dyslexic
is even worse.
It's way different because they don't have that level of privilege.
Absolutely. But I do believe if you're a white woman in a trailer right now with 5 kids in Tennessee, and someone's telling you that you're white privilege,
right?
I can see where you go, fuck that. What privilege? This is a shitty existence. Where's my, Yeah. It is true. I'm not denying there's huge advantages when every system in the country is run by white people. There's no denying that. But it's just a tricky term. I think it can be a triggering term because we all kind of feel like life's fucking hard and it's a struggle.
Right.
But it's not as hard of a struggle. You know what I'm saying? I almost wish it was I wish the term was less shitty. You know what I'm saying? Like, you benefit from less shitty.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I see your point in that, and I can see, yes, if someone who is a white woman with a bunch of kids, low income, is she gonna be like, how am I privileged?
If this is privilege, but what can I trade it for?
Let's look at the word, but let's look at it in a way that's like, it's not like what necessarily comes right into your pocket. Like, you're not like walking, oh yeah, I'm privileged because I can.
Privilege to me is you're born with a trust fund, which is like you're
right.
set.
Well, see, we have to start to think of it in a more nuanced way, right? Because
which is why I'm critical of the word. I think there's a better word for this. What is a very true evaluation of America? I feel like there's a better word.
And there could be.
Yeah.
I think that, for lack of a better word, that's where we are, right? And I think that, like,
and by the way, from your perspective, it is straight privilege.
But again, going to that, what Talib was saying, because he went down, like, he's like, so he's able-bodied, that's a privilege, right? He's a man, he's a heterosexual man,
talented motherfucker.
He's talented. He grew up in so he's recognizing
his parents are professors.
Yeah, so he's recognized. So he has education. So he's recognizing the privileges and how that doesn't mean that like he had. So he does have an advantage.
Sure.
When you look at those factors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
but they don't make your phone ring.
No, but it's what it is, right? Yeah. So like for myself, I'm privileged that, I've benefited from being light skinned. That's a privilege, right? Yeah. That like, that's not something that I'm like, oh yeah, I got that privilege. I'm not trying to wear that privilege on my fucking thing, but that's what I'm aware that like to be within a racist system or white like that has had currency in some way.
But and I want to explore that. So you're aware of that.
I'm aware of that.
Right. But how often are you, when you're writing your self narrative, this is my life, I came from here, I ended up here, I did these things, I did that thing. How much are you going, well, and I had a little advantage in that I was light skinned. Is that actually part of your thinking when you're telling your own story?
You know what? Yes, it has to be.
It is.
Yes, because
but as a conscious decision, right?
But it requires an awareness of the fact that like I exist I'm here not just because of talent and my work ethic. There's other things that played into it. The same way that white, like for you, for instance, like you're here because you're talented, you're funny, all these things, right? Mm-hmm. And then the thing that kind of helps you over the edge is that you're a white dude, white boy day. You're a heterosexual man. You're able-bodied. These are the privileges that it's not being like, oh, that doesn't make you a racist. It doesn't make you homophobe. To acknowledge that you've had certain advantages that push you over the edge, where there's a lot of people who don't have that.
Yeah.
So it's like by you having those privileges,
Well, that's what's been
we've enjoyed it. I don't even be like, oh, I'm enjoying my privilege, but it's like it's helped us.
Yes. Well,
so you should be aware of that.
It is now something I think about when I'm kind of getting circular in an argument, right? And I'm not finding my theory is finding purchase. One of the cases was, and we're not going to use names, but a sexual harassment case that's currently out there about a dude. And I said to you, if this happened to me,
right.
It wouldn't bother me.
Right.
I wouldn't give a shit. But then I remember I'm 6'3", I'm white. I don't regularly feel powerless. It's not a normal feeling for me to feel like this system is against me.
Right.
So I of course I don't feel, I can laugh things off because I'm not prone to feeling powerless.
Yeah.
And that's important for me to remember. And it's fucking hard to remember because you're looking out your own window.
And that's okay because like we can't like neatly unpack all these things. It's going to get messy. And it's like, there is probably a better word for it, but it's what it is. It's like, it's good for people to recognize that we all have, not all of us, but many of us or some of us have certain advantages and privileges. And acknowledging those things doesn't. So again, the poor white woman with children, with kids living in a trailer, she's still white at the end of the day. Yeah. So it's like that's different from a black woman with 5 children.
That's another
in
Chris
a trailer.
Rock joke.
You know what I'm saying?
Great. Yeah.
But, the dentist?
No. Well, that's a really great one. Yeah.
But
the janitor inside of Madison Square Garden. You remember that one?
No.
He had a stand-up routine. And he's like, there's a white janitor inside here of Madison Square Gardens that would not trade places with me. And I'm rich. He's like, I'm going to see how this plays out being white.
So it's like, it's not about like whose pain is worse, whatever, but it's recognizing even if you are not benefiting, because like that problem is not the fact that like white privilege doesn't work out for her. It's like she's a victim of a capitalist system more so than anything. Yeah. So it's recognizing that even if you are not reaping the rewards of your privilege, like in a tangible way that is putting money in your pocket, because that's really what we're all trying to get down to, right? Yes. That you still benefit from that by your very existence.
Yeah.
And it's not accusing anybody of anything. And so like we just have to kind of broaden our awareness on what that means.
Well, and then sadly, there's so many layers. Like what you end up doing is you're just getting further and further upstream. So it's like, I've seen it with Belle and I, where a few years ago, I was making more in movies than she was making in movies, but based on really nothing. And so we were talking about that. Mm-hmm. And she's like, maybe they're paying you more because you're a man. And I said, well, but I also walk away from offers. Mm-hmm. I negotiate harder than you do, which is a very male thing to do, right? Mm-hmm. So part of it is, yes, they're going to try to pay her as little as humanly possible. So some of it's incumbent on her to take a harder line and be able to walk away from shit. But that's a very male female thing, and it is unfortunate. Then I go even further upstream and I go, it's not fair that this world's constructed in a way where she would have to act more like me to get equal treatment and pay. So it's like I keep going backwards, right? So that's on you. You got to demand more. And then
so the flip side of that is that like then that's putting the onus on the victims, or that's putting the onus on the least advantaged to advocate for themselves. Now, mind you, yes, there's certain things that we do have to be better advocates for ourselves in general, right?
As humans,
but it takes the responsibility off of the powers that be. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's like, while you have to be the best advocate, also systematically, the system itself needs to change. So if you can be your best advocate, but sometimes you're going to have to take less because that's just what it is or whatever, you can decide if you want to walk away or not, whatever. But it's like, I would get more like mad at the system. The fact that she has to like go that route. There's not a more really, equitable.
It's complicated because you have to start by going, they're going to try to pay all of us the least amount possible. Yep. So that's
and especially people of color. And I'm glad that's coming up into the conversation, because that was like talk about a fucking like well-known secret, at least amongst us, we were getting paid less than.
Yeah. Well, what happens a lot, I think,
white people with the same or less credits than we were.
Yes.
That's real.
And I'm a victim of this, or I'm not a victim of this. I willingly do this myself, which is, you go, oh, well, Obama was elected. So I have an example of Black folks succeeding in a manner that now I don't have to think about it. And then what's been well known for years is that some of the biggest movie stars have been Black for the last 30 years, and they've gotten the biggest paychecks. Eddie Murphy, Denzel, all these people. So you just go, oh, they're paying Black folks the same, because the ones that are getting the most noise are these outrageous paychecks.
Right.
So I'm actually not thinking about what Joy Bryant's making on Parenthood versus what Lauren Graham's making or anyone else is making.
Or just even then breaking it down just gender-wise, what this actress over here is making versus what Angelina Jolie, just because like this woman is making this amount of money or that Black person is making that
You feel
amount
like,
of money.
oh, or they're good.
All right. Because
it's easy
again, that's the 1%, right?
Yes. Yes, you're hearing the exception, not the rule.
Yeah.
Because the exception makes a headline. So it's
So,
I'm really aware of.
Well, I remember having a conversation with an actor friend of mine like over 5 years ago. We were talking about, the Black rate, which I won't use the word that we was using. Just because, I can't.
Well, you will as soon as the microphone.
But we were talking about how neither one of us, while both of us at that up until that point had done some cool stuff and were known and visible enough, neither one of us had the power to really come out and call that shit for what it is.
Pass. You got to pass to get what you want.
Right. So we didn't have the power to actually publicly express that there is a pay inequity going on between artists of color and white artists, right? With sometimes the same or less credits. Yeah. Like hands down. It's not even like an exaggeration. It's not like, I doesn't know, but like
it's objective.
Yeah. Yes. But like that person did not do as many things as I did. Why the fuck are they walking on the set making more than me? We all know why.
Yes.
And so we were saying how it would take someone with a bigger name to really come out and say that. Well, the people with a bigger name ain't making what we making.
Right.
And I'm
they're going to sound.
And listen, it's all relative, right? Like we make a good living, blah, 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 blah. But like those people are not going to talk about that. And we were doing good. And there's people we weren't doing bad, but were we getting as much as what our white counterparts? No. And of course there were people making way less than us.
Yes.
Right. For the same thing. Now we flash forward years later where I think Viola Davis might've been the first person to really bring up the pay inequity amongst artists of color versus white, like the first one. And now we can talk about it, right? Because now we're also talking about, the pay inequity as it applies to women. Yeah. We're talking about that now.
Which again is a much more complicated conversation than anyone is having.
What? The pay?
I'd have to have Belle here to explain to you about it because she got out in front of that and was really vocal about that. But then it's a much deeper issue than just, it's not black and white. Women are making less than men. It's very complicated.
Well, it's all complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there is you're really currently, or maybe every generation has felt like this, there's really no road that is the middle, right? That is like, there's issues on all sides of this. We really want there to be a good guy and a bad guy in all these debates. And we want the bad guy to change. But it all has to evolve. Like everyone on all sides has to evolve.
Well, I think that like they're definitely evolve and there's different levels of consciousness that need to happen. That's why like all these conversations that we're having, even though sometimes it's like, it gets messy or, whether it's about racism or sexism or whatever, it gets messy or it's sort of like, the pendulum goes from one to, we're just we got to go through this phase and try and figure out like a way forward. And until there's more diversity in general, in terms of behind the camera, but in terms of like the people,
the system,
whether it's like that's gender, racial, whatever, then we're going to really start to see some change. But like, it's hard. And you actually said this, I remember you saying this, like talking about like, well, who the fuck's going to give up their power? There's a conversation that you and I had. Yeah. And it's like, no one's going to just, a lot of people aren't going to like willingly give up their power, right? They have to be sort of held accountable or have their feet held to the fire. But the issue is that like it does take white heterosexual dudes because since they control
everything
too, and it takes people like you, like for instance, like you're a director. Yeah. So how can you you're not going to run to the studio and be like, you better hire more. But what you're going to do, like,
I'll have a couple fights.
You'll have some fights.
I have a lot of fights to have. When I direct a movie, I have a lot of fights. I have to fight for an editor. I have to fight for a production designer. I have to fight for my music budget. I have to fight for all these things. And then I got to fight for cast. And so I maybe have in me 8 fights to win. And yes, if I've got to prioritize me selfishly, whether making the movie I wanted to make or an obligation to make, by the way, my movie was super black, white, Hispanic, everything just by, I don't know. They didn't.
But I'm not talking about in front of the camera. I'm talking about the entire scope.
Yeah, I think what my production designer is Palestinian, but everyone else is pretty much
so I'm just
white.
saying that like all those all those things are true, but it's like it takes people who have some power at some particular time to make choices and to do things differently than before. So that's making sure that your set, because I ain't even talking about in front of the camera yet. I'm just talking about like just the lead up to that.
Yeah,
is to make sure that that your sets, and maybe it's not you, but you telling the people who are there to do what the fuck you tell them to do, is to make sure that hiring practices from crew is like, it's not about 50-50. No, it's about like there needs to be some parity. There needs, in terms of gender, race. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So that you're actually being a part of the solution.
Well, by the way, you almost need to witness it. In my defense, you almost need to witness it to realize, because what you'll start thinking, or I start thinking, is, and I think you and I debated this in the past, is it's interesting that everyone's concerned that there be, let's say black folks are 15% of the population, I don't know what the number is, that they should at least be 15% of the directors, right? Well, no one's talking about making sure they're 15% of craft service or 15% of electrical. And I said, oh, it's crazy everyone wants to start at the very top, but no one's even at the bottom rung to work their way up the chain. Right. And I think I was critical of that. Like, why isn't anyone, like, no one's fighting to be a fucking gaffer. They just want to go straight to, I'm going to fight to be a director.
Well, but people are, people are fighting to be a black gaffer.
That's where I'm going.
Like other people,
I did that movie El Camino Christmas. Black director David Talbert. And by God, there were a lot of black folks all of a sudden I saw on set. And I was like, oh, there are more black people that do all those jobs than I'm aware of. Right. Because I'm only on the sets I'm on. Right. So I start believing. Or in women, so like they're out there. They need the opportunities to then rise up. Because then think about like the AD department, right? Yeah. Like you come up, you hire more black PAs, and then you come assistant director. There's a chain that they work up the chain, or electrical, or transpo, hair and makeup. Like it needs to just be more reflective of what's going on, right? Yeah. And so everyone can do, anyone with any amount of power. Like, and we have to sort of assess when we're, as creators, whatever, as we sign up for a job, what's my power dynamic here? Yes. I mean. Well, I want to say this is something that Belle and I often have debated at home. It actually requires that you break out of the paradigm that there are a finite amount of resources. Yes. And see, this is what plagued the early monetization system in America, right? When we had a gold standard, there was a finite amount of gold. So what you end up doing is you keep revaluing the dollar against the gold, but you're dealing with a finite amount of something. And so the economy actually can't expand into oblivion because we are locked into this finite concept of gold. And it wasn't until the Civil War when they started issuing money that wasn't locked to this finite amount that the economy explodes. And now you realize, oh, everyone can have a lot if we break this idea that there's this, we're all fighting over this tiny bit. Right. And so Belle will go, well, we can't pay that person this and then this person this because then, I don't know how she always says it, but basically, and I'll say to her, no, everyone really in theory can be millionaires. Like there is no limit. It's just when we reassess how much shit there is for all of us. Right. You got to break out of this notion that if someone else comes up, I'm not going down. Right. That's exactly. The key. Yeah. I'm not giving. Yeah. So the goal the goal is for everyone to have white privilege. Right. Not for you to lose your white privilege, for everyone to have the same privilege as you. Does that make sense? I mean, I wouldn't,
I see what you're saying. I wouldn't phrase it as everyone have, because I don't, I mean, I wouldn't.
I'm saying whatever
I feel uncomfortable saying that I would want to have white privilege. I feel uncomfortable with that.
Okay.
But I see your point.
Whatever advantages you have,
it's for people to have some kind of advantage in life, right?
For everyone to have the advantage, not for me to have less. I don't think the goal should be for me to have less opportunity. I think the goal should be for everyone to have the exact same great opportunity
I think that is the American ideal, is for everyone to have an opportunity and have the equal access. It's just like people fucked it up along the way.
Yes. But it's easy to think that, and let's hash this out.
In order for somebody to come up, I gotta be. Yes. No, that's the problem, I think, with like, yeah, you're right.
When I hear that, I go, why? The goal shouldn't be for me to give something up. The goal should be to give everybody this great thing I have.
Right. That's what. Yeah.
Yeah. But it requires a total shift in thinking.
Yes, and to not feel threatened that just because there's people with, who are looking for opportunity, that means like, listen, at the end of the day, you gonna get some jobs and you not gonna get some jobs.
Yeah, right.
That ain't got shit to do with nothing.
Yeah.
Because that's just the way that the ball that it goes. But you should not have an unfair advantage to getting those jobs and then be mad when other people want to come around and get that job because you've enjoyed that advantage. That's not cool. So I think that's where, for me, like when I look at just talking about this business, right? And I look at, people, like anybody that has any type of power, especially if you're white, okay? And especially if you're a male, I feel like there are things that you can do that will fucking like give a fucking middle finger to the system and really start to make things more equitable. You can't shoulder everything and it's not to be like, oh, you have to have this quote. No, but it's sort of like, for instance, like, working on a show where it's about women, right? And there's a lot of women on set, but there's only a handful of women of color. That's a problem. You know what I'm saying? But that's a problem.
And let's say this. This is why this is a very hard problem to tackle, because all these people are needed. But the people who are currently in power also should be writing their story, which is tricky. I should write my story. You know what I'm saying? Let's just start with the very first rule of writing and storytelling is tell what you know. Tell your story. So it is a trap and a cycle that's very hard to break, because currently the people who have the ability to get something made are telling their story, which is normal.
That's
and their
cool.
story isn't female, or their story isn't black, or their story isn't Hispanic. It's their stories.
That's cool.
Yeah, but you see what I'm saying is what we need is more of those stories. We need more black stories. We need more female stories. We need all these things.
But the thing is, even on a story that is told from a white perspective.
Like Tarantino's doing the blackest movies, which is ironic.
No. My point is this. It's not so much about the storytelling per se, because like you're telling a story from a white perspective, a white, straight, male perspective. That's okay. I'm talking about behind the scenes. You don't need all the gaffers being white. I'm sorry. You don't need transpo all being white. That's not what does that fucking got to do with your story?
No. I'm talking about the above the line issue.
Yeah, I mean, but go with it. It needs to. It's like the problem of a lack of inclusiveness is a pervasive problem throughout the entire industry. So when you're talking about, everyone's talking about directors. What about black? I'm talking about gaffers. I'm talking about that because I can step on a job.
I agree. And
I can step on a job where like,
and that is up to me. If I make a movie again, which is like, I got to go out of my way, which I should. I got to go out of my way to go like, are there any black electrician options I can interview? But it does require some consciousness on my part.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And it will require until is a part of that, like your, that's a part of your shit. Like, this is what I want. I mean, like, look at Ava DuVernay. Ava DuVernay is a great example of, of course they've done studies that show that like when women are at, in positions of leadership, there are going to be more women there, right?
Yeah.
So she's a woman, so it's going to have more, gender parity. She's also a black woman, so it's going to have more diversity, racial or ethnic diversity. It's like, but we have to make a commitment, and that's not just, it's all of us, right? So it's like, especially if you have that power. So it's like, it just takes a little bit more effort to be like, to consider outside of what we, okay, cool. Let's just make sure that for gender, racial, ethnic, whatever, like that we have a as diverse team as possible.
Yeah.
What's it?
Yeah. And it's got to be a conscious decision. It's not.
Yeah, it has to be until it's not. Until it's not.
Right.
But like nothing's going to change until people do that.
Yeah.
And if there's not that many Black directors, well, who the fuck gonna do it?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
let's just talk really quick before we go about one of our less important debates on race.
What?
Which is when you purchase an automobile.
Oh, no. Come on, man.
You purchase an automobile and you sign up. You make a down payment and then you're required to make a monthly.
Right. Your car note. I don't care what you say. Car note. It's called car note.
So one of the many things that Joy and I discovered.
And then your
over
mortgage
6 years,
is your house note.
Your house note. Yeah, we were talking. I grew up around Detroit and I was down in Detroit a lot. And so I was privy to a lot of fun Black colloquials, and one of them being car note. And I said to Joy, not a single white person in America knows what the fuck a car note is. And she's like, no, that's not true. And then you asked every white person on Parenthood.
And they were like, huh?
What's a car note? Like something you leave on the hood if you parked in the wrong spot.
And then I had some Black friends who were like, nah, it's car. Yeah. And then like one friend was like, yeah, but who grew up in Connecticut, like a rural Connecticut. She's like, they didn't say, but I'm like, so yeah, it's still up in the, yeah. I mean, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I know. I still
car note.
I mean, at least like when you come back,
it sounds so much better than a car payment. Car note. It sounds a bit more civilized.
So when you tell other Black folks, like, white people call it car payment, at least it makes sense, right? You're like, it's a car payment. When I try to explain what would be car note, what is the note part? What does that even
I'm
fucking
telling
mean?
you, it's a more sophisticated way.
It's an elevated way.
It's better. It's an elevated way.
Well, I just want to publicly thank you for always having these debates we've had over the years. And feeling like in my soul that my intentions were good and my heart was pure, and always being patient and letting me come to. And by the way, I don't agree with Joy on a lot of these things. There's some I haven't come around to, which is good and healthy, and I love it.
Right, and you don't have to. And listen, there's discussion, and then we sit. We kind of okay.
Yeah.
Listen.
Yeah.
If like a year from now, you're like, you know what? You was right about car note.
Yeah. But can I say, I think a lot of this is what your self-esteem level is and how you feel as a person, that you don't always feel attacked and defensive,
Right.
So you have admirable self-esteem. I've always been attracted to that part of you. Yeah. I think you're like, what lane you're in, and you have your thing. You design clothes, you play the drums, you write, you know the things that you want to do that fill up the well.
Right.
And as we both said, we both are in a great position that we can do these things that fill up the well inside.
Right.
And so I'm lucky as hell. I have a lot of great stuff in my life. If I'm wrong about this debate, my self-esteem's not hinged on that.
Right.
And that's a really privileged place to be.
Right.
And I wish for everybody, really what I wish is that everyone had that. That would be nice, because then we could all hear this shit and not get defensive and not feel like we're under attack or we owe someone
because we can't really change anything if we don't have these discussions. Right.
Yeah.
And
it's a luxury to have them. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
but they're also, it's vital, that it's necessary that we have this,
Yeah. I don't mean that it's a luxury to have the conversation. I want to correct myself. It's a luxury to be in a position where you can hear all sides, and you're not scratching for your life to keep your head above water. Like, that's nice. The fact that I get to think about whether I'm eating organic food or not organic food, or you know what I'm saying? Like, what a luxury. The first half of my life, I was just thinking about, like, I need 2,000 calories.
That was really white of you.
Yeah. I need 2,000 calories. 7-Eleven has 2 hot dogs for $1.29. I'm doing that for first 25 years I'm alive.
Oh my God.
And now I'm like, wait, do I feel different when I eat better stuff? Oh, I do. What a fucking luxury I have. But I love you so much.
I love you too.
You're everything I hoped you'd be.
Aww.
And I feel so blessed that you and I got to be married for 6 years. I love you.
My TV boo. It's my TV boo.
Come back.
I will. Bye now.
Stay tuned if you'd like to hear my good friend and producer Monica Padman point out the many errors in the podcast you just heard. Oh.
This is a good one.
This is a good one? Yeah, I would imagine this would be good. Monica Padman, welcome. You're here once again to point out the many errors I made in my previous conversation with Joy Bryant.
Yes.
Were there many?
There were.
Okay.
Some.
Okay.
Not many. Not as many as I would have expected for that conversation.
Yes, because it got dangerous at many intervals. Were you scared for me a couple times? I was scared for myself a couple times.
Well, sure.
And
I'm always
I
scared
crossed
for you.
the line a couple times too, probably.
No, I don't think you were honest.
Okay.
Okay. You said that Jeffrey Dahmer grew up thinking his mom was his sister, but it was Ted Bundy.
Ted Bundy. Okay, great.
Ted Bundy is the...
And again, not to get granular, but I do believe I said someone like...
Yes.
Okay, great.
You said Jeffrey Dahmer, and then you said, well, there's someone
one of those serial
people.
killers. And then I said that our good friend from A Few Good Men was a serial killer, and he's not the actor.
Jack Nicholson?
Yeah, Jack Nicholson.
Yeah. No. You didn't say he was a serial Did you say he was a serial killer?
Yeah, I said he was a serial killer.
She said that he also thought his mom was a sister, and that's also true.
Oh, that's true. He thought his mom was his sister.
He thought.
You need that kind of shit in your background to be a good actor.
Yeah, you need some stuff.
You need some.
It makes me worried,
grit.
but I have some stuff.
Okay.
So there. Oh, okay. So you brought up the government cheese and the government pork, and you said you didn't know the brand, but the brand is Lakeside Foods that makes the government pork, and you were right because I found a big picture of it
with an outline of a pig.
Yeah, it has it's like more of like a silhouette. It's colored in black pig.
I'm so glad that you confirmed that because that is certainly something that I was 11 when I would look at that can that I could have largely imagined that.
It really stamped in your brain because you were very accurate.
Yeah, it's gross. And it's a huge can
too. And it doesn't have a paper around it.
It's just aluminum and ink.
Yep. And it's labeled pork with juices.
Oh, Jennifer. Oh, boy. I bet a lot of people just extracted those juices and made like a soup, like a pork juice.
I don't think they made a soup. They just drank it and called it a
just
soup.
Microwaved it.
Okay, so then you have a discussion about Waylon Jennings considering himself a Native American.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's just appropriating that because he spent a lot of time with the Navajo Indians and he would make
in the
regular
American
stops.
Southwest, yeah.
Yeah, and he would make regular stops on the reservation and he spent a lot of time with them. So I think they probably just gave him that name and designated him that.
So he maybe had no genealogical claim to it. It was just an affinity for the culture.
Yeah.
Well, he does sing in that song, America, all my brothers are red, black, and white, yellow too. And the red man is right to expect a little from you. Promise and then follow through, America. He's calling on America to follow through on their promise to the red man. His words, not mine.
I know. I'm glad they're not your words. 'Cause that sounded racist. I guess he could because they were best friends.
And it's the 70s. And I'm sure it was the best thing you could say at that time.
Yeah, and he was trying to be helpful.
He was his heart was pure.
Yeah.
I think I read his autobiography. And again, I'm just getting myself into more hot water because I'm going to misremember this. But I do think in his biography, when he quit cocaine, he went to the desert in his motorhome with a ton of cocaine and stayed out there and did it all and then quit cold turkey. And I think he might have been on a reservation when he was in his motorhome quitting coke.
Oh.
Yeah.
That makes sense. They really embraced him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so then you guys have a discussion about eating disorders and different races and anorexia, because that's what you were talking about specifically. Okay, I'm sorry. Eating disorders in general are of similar rates. They appear at similar rates in all
ethnicities.
Races. Yeah.
Okay.
All ethnicities, even though the common misconception is it's white, straight, young, white peeps.
Yeah. Okay.
And actually, bulimia is more common in the African American.
It is.
Yeah, which is sort of goes against your point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it is.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Where did you find that tidbit?
I found it on nationaleatingdisorders.org.
Okay, we trust them.
Yeah, it's an org.
It's a .org.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I trust an org.
I trust all orgs.
Okay. Stanford is not all pass-fail. Only some classes are pass-fail.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Like what? The GE, the block of your core classes?
No, well, it says all courses for meeting university requirements, including general education requirements, must be taken for a letter grade.
Oh, and maybe your majors pass-fail?
Most departments limit or do not accept CRNC, that's pass-fail, notation for courses for credit within the major requirement.
Okay.
So really not very many at all probably are.
Okay. It's weird I think that. Where did
maybe
I get
at some point, but it didn't say anything about that. But on the current Stanford website, that's what it is. David Duke has 2 children. You said you didn't know if he had any children, and I just wanted to clarify that he has 2 children, 2 girls.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah.
And how are they? Have they distanced themselves from dad, or have they embraced dad?
I didn't look into
You
them
didn't go that far.
very deeply,
Okay,
but
yeah,
they're
yeah.
there.
They're there. They're with us.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're probably in a dilemma, you know.
I'm sure.
If they're millennials, I didn't check their age.
This is one of the many things Chris and I debate all the time, which is I understand familial piety. I understand sticking by a flawed parent. I kind of understand it.
I understand it.
And we debate what we'd do if our child was a serial killer. And I'm like, I'd hide her. I would take her somewhere and hide her. I would not turn her in. And we differ on that. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a hot button topic.
I think she would hide her.
I know. I think she might
in real
say
life,
that she wouldn't, but would
knowing
do it.
her.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on how much damage she was doing and if she was going to keep doing it.
Yes.
She wouldn't allow her to keep murdering for sport.
No. Nor would I. But I would get her out of the country and hide her.
But what if she was like, I need to do it.
I would let her
me.
hunt a deer barehanded or something.
Okay, then I wanted to clarify because this came up. Martin Luther King did have an orgy.
That was recorded by the FBI, correct? Or CIA?
Yeah, it was released in an FBI document that had like allegations of his sexual misconduct that they declassified, I guess, when they were trying to figure out stuff about the JFK assassination.
Right. I want to say it was like 5 years ago. I remember seeing that in the news.
According to the thing I was reading, the Trump administration released this FBI document.
Of course
They did. Okay. It really made sense when I read it.
All
right. Yeah. They had an orgy. He had an orgy. He would have orgies at like workshops.
Oh, okay.
So,
like spiritual workshops.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. And then you said, or you didn't know what the percentage of the African American population exists in this country, and it's 12.3.
12.3.
Yeah.
Great.
That's all.
That's all?
Yeah.
Oh,
you did pretty good.
Oh, okay. Thanks. As I said, I was a little nervous I would end up out on a limb.
What were you nervous about?
Well, because I can easily, and when I'm debating race with somebody, you're of Indian descent.
I am.
Your father's from India. Your mother also when she was 3. Yeah. And we're talking or we're debating. I will regularly get super self-conscious, like, I went too far, because I'm always on the verge of going too far. And then I could see myself going, oh fuck, I just went too far. That's mildly racist. And then now I'm going to try to get out of this, extricate myself with some bogus fact or bogus claim. You know, I could see where that would have happened. You know, I feel like that's a pattern I maybe have been in the past.
You don't think you would just say, oh, sorry.
Well, I have done that as well. Yeah, but depending on what my heart rate is and what part of my brain is working and online, sometimes I will get embarrassed. And then if I'm embarrassed, I'll get maybe defensive.
Yeah.
And then,
That's normal. That's human.
I'm trying, this is a risky run if you want to wade into some choppy water. These are probably topics a lot of white people don't want to talk about with black people or vice versa.
Yeah.
It is a little scary.
But you have to.
Yeah, you got to do it.
So good job.
Thank you.